Great to have you here, and welcome everyone here. My name is Doug. I'm the pastor of Hopewell Reformed Church. We wanted to bless the community and bless all of you with this conference today, which is why we're offering this complimentary to the community and to all of you. My wife and I have two girls. We have a 13-year-old daughter and a 1-year-old, and so we understand a little bit about how difficult parenting is. We're trying to understand how do we parent our 13-year-old so that we give her enough space to make mistakes, and yet at the same time are in touch with her enough to keep her safe without being a helicopter parent. And our 1-year-old, we're mainly just trying to keep her from bumping into the furniture right now. So,
yes.
But we're really glad to have you here.
Awesome.
And,
Thank you.
a couple logistical things. If you walk through the fellowship hall, that's the hall where you entered the church, where you entered the building. Just go through and up about 5 steps, and you'll see the bathrooms on the right. Your kids are in the room right across from the bathroom, so if you need to check on them at any point, just feel free. Also, we'll have 10-minute breaks between the 3 sessions that Kirk is leading for us today. And then finally, we have pizza for you at the end of the day. So at 6 o'clock, please stay for a piece of pizza.
Just
I also want
one.
to...
Just one slice.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. That's what it sounded like.
I didn't mean to
Is
make
there
it sound
more?
like that. That's true. Have as many slices as you want. I also want to introduce Alicia Martin. No relation, by the way. Just happens to be the same last name. But Alicia is a local parenting coach and offers a course called Learn How to Talk So Your Teens Will Listen, and Learn How to Listen So Your Teens Will Talk. And I really want to take that class.
That's
we
cool.
want to take that class. So Alicia's going to introduce Kirk to you.
Well, this is Kirk Martin, and we are so thrilled to bring him here to you today. He's kind of like, I don't know.
Stop.
Can I say this?
Don't do it.
No, I'm serious.
It's bizarre.
So, someone very special told us about him a long, long time ago. We've been listening to the podcast. I mean, Michelle actually has CDs. I do. And we have this big binder of like Celebrate Calm, and so we were inspired by everything you said and have said all through the years when we got together and talked about how we can bring you all together for a parenting conference. We put our heads together, and I felt very strongly that we should bring Kirk Martin. So without further ado, you already know how awesome he is. So thank you, Kirk.
Thank you. Thank you. But thank you to Alicia. So round of applause if you don't mind, because it's all she did. She and my son emailed back like 400,000 times, so it was awesome. And I know I forgot a belt today, so I'm self-conscious, but I'm going to let it go because I'm a dude. My wife's not with me, so this is what you get. So I don't want your belt, dude. So anyway, thank you though. That's kind. So other things, really quickly, other things that you wanted to address today that we can kind of cover right now. Yes.
My daughter has been doing the same thing since she was 2 or 3.
Okay.
Like, never cleaning her room, never, like, eating in her room until I pretended that there were mice in there, black rice around. I laughed.
Right.
It worked, I'm pretty sure. She put, like, candy bar wrappers in her drawers, and she's a really sweet kid, but the same behaviors, there's no learning curve. And I just need to know, I've been trying to just ignore, but
Honest advice. It's been since she was 2. I mean, if you were a good mom, she would have learned by now. Or, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm so kidding. We never learned with our son. You know Casey. So our son is Casey. He was horrible as a kid. There's a room, there are doors on the bedroom. Now, some of you are a little OCD and you're going to struggle with that. But here it's actually a really good example because you get that. It's mainly the anxiety about the future. What's going to happen? Is she going to grow up? Is she going to be a hoarder? Is she going to be like on one of those shows? Who's going to marry her? Right? Like she's got all this stuff. Casey, our son, never cleaned up. If you go visit him, we live out west now. If you go to his house, when you walk in the door, guess what you have to do? Take your shoes off. Seriously, Casey? You want me to take my shoes off in your house? You like literally just made our house disgusting for 18 years. The difference is he owns his house, and he's grown up, and he has a fiance that he wants to impress. So there's internal motivation to do that. Look, you can do, we'll go through the tough approach, and then sometimes just the approach of, you've been letting it bother you for like 13 years. Okay, so I release you from that, and you can worry about other things instead. So just, it's not the end of the world. And it's not like we can do anything to really change it right now anyway. I would chill with that. I'm older now, so hopefully some things I can help with that. Okay, anything else? And we'll have time for other things later. Yes?
So, I'm a first-time mom, and I have a 2.5-year-old, 2 going on 13.
Awesome.
First, I want to say that some of the things people have said made me feel like, oh, what?
You're not alone.
Similar to the discipline thing, my husband came from a very strict, spanking kind of
Right.
parents, and I was the opposite, so trying to mesh those two
Okay,
approaches.
good.
And when, she has her toys scattered everywhere, she wants to start something else. We tried, hey, you gotta pick up these toys before you start playing with these toys. And she doesn't, when we ask her all the time, well, we're gonna throw them away. And then she was excited about throwing them away.
That's our kids. You know what? You don't pick them up, they're going in a bag, and they're going to Goodwill tomorrow. And the strong-willed child's going to be like, we just do it now? Right? And then you're like, what do we do? So, good. We'll get into a lot of those things. Let me go, if you don't mind, I'll go ahead and begin. We'll lay some foundation and then have a lot of time for Q&A throughout. So, again, thank you all for investing this time. So, obviously, we're here more for the strong-willed kids, because if you just had compliant kids, there'd be no reason to come here this afternoon. So here's how we describe these kids in general. They tend to be very bright kids. They're smart. They're just not always academically motivated, right? And they tend to use their intelligence to argue with you, because they're like little cops, judges, and attorneys all rolled into one. These are kids who tend to wake up with an agenda. Right? They've got these very busy brains, and they have ideas of how they want to do things. And they've got this agenda because they know what they like and they know what they don't like, and what they don't like is anything that you want them to do. Right? So you're going to have power struggles. Their entire childhood is going to sound like this. If you would just do what I asked you to do, you would be done in 7 minutes. But you'd rather argue with me for 7 hours or days or weeks or years and lose everything. Anybody have those kids, right? So, consequences we will get to, but please know this. Consequences are important because they set boundaries. But here's what I believe. Consequences don't change human behavior. Relationships, connection, change human behavior. Giving kids tools to do it a different way changes human behavior. But consequences, not so much. And that tends to be our go-to, right, as parents? That's what, right? Everybody will tell you, especially all your friends with compliant kids, well, you just need to discipline that child. And you're like, really? I never thought about being consistent and following through, right? But you've done that, and it doesn't work for these kids. So a few other things about strong-willed kids. They tend to be stove touchers. They have to touch the hot stove. And that tends to be the way they learn best. And it's actually a really good thing, because that's about ownership. If they were mature enough, they would say, Mom, Dad, I know what you want me to do. I just don't want to do it your way. Your way's boring, duh, stupid. Right? And I know it's going to come across very disrespectfully, but if they were mature enough, they would say, would you give me some space to try and figure it out on my own? And it's really hard for some of us, because some of us in here have control issues, right? Right? Actually, all of us do. I want things done a certain way. I know the most effective, efficient way to do it. I overschedule you. There's a lot of traffic here. We don't really have time for your creativity and for you to figure it out, right? We just need to get with the program. And if you don't mind, I'm just going to kind of roll with what comes to in my head today. You give your child, say, a task, and he or she is over here by himself kind of figuring out, tinkering with things. A lot of you have kids who like to tinker with stuff. They also tinker with your brain. They're very good at pushing your buttons. And the main reason is because you have so many buttons to push. True? Yes. There's no blame or no guilt, but if you didn't have all those buttons, you couldn't push. It's also for brain stimulation, some other things. But they tinker with things. And then mom or dad walk into the room and our first, oh, honey, let me show you how to do that in a better or faster way. And then they're like, I'm out. Right? And they'd rather touch the hot stove. So we'll get into that about how to step, our phrase, how to step back as a parent so we give them space to step up and be responsible for themselves. Because the truth is, when we're lecturing, because we think that's teaching, right? We're like, I'm just teaching. You're lecturing. Lecturing is micromanaging, true? And nobody likes to be micromanaged, especially the strong-willed child. So you can't really push these kids because if you push, they will resist even harder or shut down, true? So you have to lead them. You have to draw them. One of the hardest parts about raising a strong-willed child is that they will never do things the way that you want them done. Not until they're about 25 or 30. But they're not going to do it right now. They're going to do it their own way. And you're going to have to wrestle with this because you're like, I'm the authority figure in the home. You need to do this the way I told you to do it. And what I know after working with all these, so many kids is they don't care. And if you're 6'4" and 250 and you're jacked, some big dude, I'll put $1,000 on your 6-year-old that he's going to own you because they have an iron will. So, but notice too, we're not going to talk about permissive parenting. It's not like, you know what, you're strong-willed. Do whatever you want, don't bother me. So I'm not going there, right? But I also don't want to go to the overly authoritarian route. I want to be the authority figure in the home. Again, you're going to have to struggle or wrestle with your view of authority figures, right? Because sometimes in religious circles, certain places, and the way you were raised, the authority figure was, I'm just the boss. I get to tell you what to do whenever I want you to do it, and if you don't do it, I get angry, right? That was my concept, your concept of an authority figure. Your dad, mine too. My dad was career military. That was the only tool he knew to use with his 4 boys. Now, sometimes you can think of an authority figure as someone who has a lot of wisdom and is very patient and comes along and teaches you and encourages you, still firm with you, right? Doesn't let you get away with things, but has a nice balance there. And I think that's probably what we're all after. Some of you may not be. You can go with the other approach, but I will bet. I will make money off of you, betting on your strong-willed child. So here's where experience very quickly comes from. Our son Casey's 30 today. It's actually his birthday today. So, look, all the moms are like, oh. Dads are like, whatever, glad he's out of the home, right? College is done. So, came out of the womb with boxing gloves on. Difficult kid, was not very good in the kid world. How many of you have noticed this? That your kids really struggle to be kids in some ways. The kid world, school, doing chores at home. When you put them out in the real world, they're awesome like, why don't I get that kid at home? So we'll talk about ways to do that and use that to our advantage. All the things that irritated me about Casey when he was little are the very traits that make him successful now, right? That strong will, I promise, I would rather have a strong-willed child than a compliant child any day. I wish teachers would send home notes to the parents of compliant children and just said, I'm worried about your son. He sits in my class all day just waiting for me to tell him what to do. Kid's got no initiative, never colors outside the lines, won't take any risks, right? Doesn't blurt out because he doesn't have any good ideas. I'm worried about your child because how's he going to survive in this kind of, right, in this kind of world? But your other son, oh, that kid challenges every single thing I say. Not always respectfully, but he's still a kid, but he does it because he has good critical thinking skills. The kid's a thinker. He's a doer. I don't have to wait for him to do something. He just walks in and kind of takes over. Some people call that being bossy. I call it leadership, right? Some people call it manipulation. I call it being persuasive. True? It's a very narrow line between those things. And I'm going to encourage you to wrestle with those things because sometimes in our heads, we get a narrative of, this is just a defiant little snot that makes my life difficult. And that can be true, right? At times, this is very, very true. Your kids can be very defiant. And I can also look at that child and say, that's a really bright kid who's really frustrated, who hasn't figured out how to do things on his own, right, and take ownership in a proper way. So we decided to do something different. We used to live down outside of D.C., and my wife is a therapist. But what we learned with therapy with strong-willed kids is that they will manipulate the therapist usually or tell the therapist what the therapist wants to hear, right? If any of you have that experience. Or they just say this for an hour. I don't know. It's like, okay, here's another $1,000 to find out. I don't know. So we invited them into our home. So the idea was to have 8, 10, 12, 15 strong-willed kids, kids on the spectrum, adopted, foster kids in our home so that we could control the environment. So the idea was I would intentionally put them in situations like changing plans at the last minute so they'd freak out. So in the moment, we could teach them, I know exactly what's going on. You've got this really busy brain. You like everything to be in control. When it's not, you feel out of control. You want to boss other people around. That's why we can't play. By the way, so many of your kids can't play board games with them because they're going to change the rules of the game, cheat, or quit. And it's not because they're poor sports. It's because if I'm cheating, I cheat to control the outcome of the game. These kids are constantly trying to eliminate unknowns for their lives. That's why they eat the same food. They eat mac and cheese and chicken nuggets. Some of it's gut issues. If they have a lot of anxiety, they're going to go for salty stuff, for stuff that's easy to digest. They wear the same clothes literally every single day. Why? Because now I just eliminated unknowns. I know what I'm wearing. I'm wearing that same hoodie sweatshirt. Well, don't you want to clean it? No. Right? So chill with that. You only have to buy your child like one sweatshirt a year. Right? And it saves on laundry and helps the environment because you don't have to wash it that often. So over the course of a decade, we had about 1,500 of these kids in our home. So I hope what you find is, I'm going to try to make this very, very practical. I will provoke you a little bit, not to be a jerk, but partly because I am strong-willed and I like to do that, but more so to get us to wrestle with things because it's not all black and white with the strong-willed kids. You're going to have to make some decisions of like, how many of you already wrestled with this? Are we letting our child get away with things, right? And sometimes you are, so you don't murder them, right? Like there's wisdom in like, you know what? I'm tired. They're tired. I don't think I'm going with the tough approach right now because it's just going to escalate. So let's do this. Let's start with controlling ourselves first, and then we'll get into all kinds of different situations with our strong-willed kids. So I always start with this, 2 principles. One is this. There's only one person in life you can control, and that is whom? Ourselves, right? But how many of us struggle with that? Yeah. Right? How many tell our kids, you need to calm down right now, young man. And then your kids are like, apparently you haven't mastered that skill. And you're 38, right? So, second principle, the quickest way to change your child's behavior is to first control your own. We'll see this throughout this afternoon. I have so much power over my children, over my spouse, over other human beings in general, just by controlling my own tone of voice, my own demeanor, how I act. It's right, like if I come up to you like this, it creates a defensive response, right? Like we're going to have a confrontation. If I sit down and ask you questions, it's more like we're going to have a conversation, right? We can put people on the defensive. So two things I'd focus on first. One is tone of voice. I think tone of voice is critical. And I encourage you to practice this tone of voice when you're driving in the car alone. A lot of moms will have trouble with this because it sounds cold, but it's an even, matter-of-fact, business-like tone. So here's what we tend to start with, some of us. We start with that really sweet tone. Sweetie, baby, mommy needs your help. I'm not a big fan of that tone because it sounds condescending and it sounds like weakness. It sounds like this. Sweetie, baby, you scare the crap out of us. Because when we actually tell you to do something, you have a big meltdown, and then we start talking in that sing-songy teenager voice, right? Hoping that you're going to listen, please. It sounds like weakness to them. I'd rather talk to a 4-year-old, 14-year-old, 24-year-old the same way. Because the even tone says I'm in complete control of myself. It's a really interesting, it imparts confidence to them. But that really sweet voice, not a big fan. I'm not being funny. I would not refer to myself as mommy or daddy when giving instructions to a strong-willed child. I'd rather just talk to them like adults. The pleading tone. Guys, all I'm asking for is a little bit of help. You may as well drink because nothing good happens after that. I don't encourage drinking, but, right? Because once I get into the pleading tone, here's what your kids know. you're exhausted, Mom. I'm just going to push your buttons, and then you're going to lose it, and you and Dad are going to start fighting, and then I don't have to do what you said. True? That is the, after all I do for you, and you, that is manipulation. Because I've done so much for you, you owe me. Right? Some of you got that from your moms. Yeah, and then they're still doing it. When are you bringing my grandchild? Oh, your grandchild. Uh-oh, I think we're moving to Montana to live next to Kirk. So, but that becomes a little controlling and manipulative, and we'll see the other form of that in a few minutes. So usually when the sweet approach doesn't come, then it's like, you will get your little butt up in bed, right? Screaming, yelling, fear, and intimidation doesn't work for a strong-willed child because they're fight or flight kids. They're either going to go for the fight and go, oh, bring it. Bring it, Dad. Is that all you got? And they will just fight you over it, or they will just shut down. So right in between sweetie baby, screaming, yelling is this. It's me in control of myself. My yes is my yes, my no is my no. I'm not going to bribe you. I'm not going to ask you 14 times, right? When I tell you something, I mean it. Not a lot, I would encourage you, not a lot of talking. A lot of talking provokes the strong-willed child to anger, and it makes you more angry. Because the more that I start talking, right, I work myself up into things a lot. So I use this analogy for men, and I appreciate the guys who came out, for those whose husbands were the ones who really should be here today, but they couldn't make it. Men tend to relate to analogies better. And so I'm not being, look, I will probably in the course of 3 hours say something offensive or many things. It's not meant to be. So I just encourage you, if you will give me some latitude, sometimes my language is a little bit more direct or a little bit more visceral. And I know we're in a church, so Pastor, if you'll forgive me, I'll probably drop the F-bomb a few times, but somewhere close to that. Well, because there's a visceral part of it, right, that's inside of our kids, and I want to deal in reality and not just, well, if you're a good Christian family and you pray for your children. I was like, if that worked, none of you would be here, right? And so that's good, do all those things, but, so please also give me some leeway. I may use an example where Dad's working outside the home and comes home, and Mom is stay-at-home. And I know there are times where the dad is a stay-at-home or both of you are working, but I talk really fast sometimes. So just, if I don't, a lady came up the other day and said, well, you didn't describe our exact situation. I was like, I don't have, like, all day, right? And I was like, please take the principles and apply them. If you would do that for me. And if I offend you, just tell me afterwards or during, say that was offensive, and I'll be like, well, you're easy to offend, and that's your issue. And then I'll give you the fake apology. I'm sorry that you were so, I'm just kidding. But I realized that about myself. So I use this analogy for men. Men in every sphere of life tend to respect other men who stay cool and calm under pressure. Right? In the middle of a war, we don't want to follow the platoon captain who's like, oh my gosh, they're shooting at us. Nobody's following that guy. A good quarterback. Now, I don't know in this part of Connecticut if you're like football Giant fans or hopefully not Jets fans. Although you have a whiny quarterback coming your way this year. I'm sorry, I was a Packers fan, so we were Aaron Rodgers. Or if you're New England Patriots, which would have been smart for a decade to be fans of them. But one of the reasons Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes was such a great quarterback is why. Because in the fourth quarter when they were losing, they didn't come into the huddle. You know what? We're down by 2 touchdowns. You don't know what route to run. You keep fumbling the ball. Let's go score. Nobody's following that guy. But a good quarterback comes and takes the knee and says, guys, we're down by 2 touchdowns. We're going to march down the field, execute our plays, score, get the ball back, and score again. Break. And his team follows him precisely because he's unflappable in the moment. Does that make sense? So, because men, this is a very common thing. At the office, we can handle everything. We love fixing stuff and problem solving. And then we walk through the front door of our home. There are Legos on the floor. People have emotions, and I don't know what to do with that, right? So, and then we freak out. So, you know, let me hit this now for the guys in here. And this is for some of the moms, because sometimes the moms in here are the more like, well, I'm the tough one. and whatever. So we can do those both. But sometimes for guys or for people wired like that, this is weird. But for a week, try talking to your kids like they're a business colleague.
That wouldn't work for me.
Okay, I don't want to know where you work. But what I mean is, at work, I talk to people in a matter-of-fact way, and we problem solve. I do phone consultations with this couple, and they're both emergency room doctors. They can handle anything. People come in bleeding, dying. But when they walk through the door of their home, they can't handle it. And I was like, well, when people come into the ER, you're like, great, nice job getting shot. Probably going to bleed to death. Well done. Right? Like, no, you check their vitals. You read the chart. You read the situation, and then you problem solve. And the reason you stay calm in the emergency room is that because that helps you keep things from escalating, and it helps you see clearly to help people. Well, when you walk through the home, do the same thing. Read the chart. Read your child's mood that day. Read yourself. And begin taking action steps instead of just reacting all the time. The other one I like for men sometimes is to, for a week, try being the coach, not the dad. And here's why. And this is for you as moms, too. When you become a parent, it's like, my job for the next 20 years is to discipline my kids. And you get very focused on finding everything that they do wrong and trying to fix it, because if I don't fix that when they're 3, they're going to be, right? They're going to be an outcast, and they're going to be a failure, and then I'm going to be a failure. But a coach sometimes has a slightly different tone. Coach can still be tough, right? My son played hockey, said, hey, nice, on the last shift, I would tell my son, nice job back checking, way to get back. Hey, I've noticed here's an area where you struggle a little bit. Next time, why don't we try that? That tends to be received a lot better than, you know what, you never back check, because the dad tone tends to be a little bit of the more critical, right? Does that make sense at all? And so, as coach, I'm still the authority figure in the home. It just sometimes helps a little bit. So, let's do this. So tone of voice, work on that. Just practice that, and I'll model it throughout the day. Body posture. This is a weird one, but I'd encourage you with learning to calm down. This will sound funny, but just try it sometime. The next time your kids are squabbling, next time they're arguing with you, try this one time. Either sit down or lie down in the middle of the living room floor, wherever it's happening. Let me do a sibling issue really quickly. My two, no, I'm going to make it like this. I like this one. My son and my daughter are squabbling in the living room. Mom, I tend to come in like this. You know what? I buy you guys all these toys and all these video games. You can't even play well together for 20 minutes. Young man, you go to your room. You go to your room. And I tend to separate them because my goal is to just get them to shut up, right? And I didn't do any disciplining, because discipline means literally to teach. Doesn't mean to punish, doesn't mean to give consequences. It means to discipline, means to teach. For those of you who are people of faith, discipline, the word disciple. So to show by doing, actually. It's kind of cool. So imagine, though, kids are squabbling. Mom or dad walk into the living room and just lie down in the middle of the living room floor. What's going to happen?
They get concerned about you at that point.
It is kind of weird. Now, as long as they're not going to stomp on your head, because some of you have kids who will do that, so don't do that. They'll stop, because they'll be like, what's Mom doing laying down in the middle of the floor? And now I get to teach, because I took back control of that situation, not by trying to control your behavior. Because look, that's a big trap in life. If you're going to go through life and try, if the success of your family is dependent on controlling or changing the behavior of other human beings, you're going to be frustrated, and they're going to be frustrated. If the success of my family is dependent on me starting to learn how to control myself, I've got a shot at that. So now I lie down, and they look at me like, what are you doing? Hey, son, I've seen this scene unfold in our home like 43 times this week. You're bored. You got this really cool brain. It moves really fast, a lot of ideas. You're like a junior Thomas Edison. And I love that brain. But one of your things you hate most in life is being bored. So when you get bored, here's what you do. You poke your sister, you start bugging your sister. Why? Because that stimulates your brain, right? That's part of what it is. The other part of sibling fights, by the way, are, it's not a sibling issue, it's a confidence issue. It's your strong-willed child is the one that's always in trouble. And then if you have a more compliant child that everybody loves and is awesome, strong-willed child is naturally going to be resentful toward the good child. Cain and Abel, same thing. So now watch. So son, I know why you're doing that, because you got bored and you just want to stimulate your brain. But here's two other things I know about you. You love money. How many of your kids love money? Strong-willed kids often love money, and they're not greedy. They'll give it away. They've got big hearts, just not towards you. Right? So you've got a big heart, and you love money. And they do have big hearts toward other people. So I have an idea. I've got to go get started on dinner. You'll see throughout, I always give some space. When I'm disciplining, addressing, I try to give some space in between, time to process. You may continue to bug your sister. You're just going to lose all your stuff. But if you want to come help me fix dinner, help me walk the dog, I bet we could brainstorm 3 different ways to use that brain of yours to earn some money in this neighborhood. With that money, you could buy your own toys, you can donate some to St. Jude's, whatever you want to do. I'm now giving him 2 things. Instead of, leave your sister alone. Why are you always bugging her? Why do you always have to create so much chaos in our... Anything that starts with, why do you have to, I would start to stop that, because that's when we get personal. And that's when they start to internalize, I'm a bad kid. Nobody likes me, right? So now instead of, you're a bad kid, go to your room, it's, no, you're just a bored kid. And so you can keep bugging your sister. It's not going to lead anything good, right? Because she kind of owns you now because you need her to respond, right? Or I can show you how to make some money. Want to help me with that? And so I'm showing him a different way to get brain stimulation. Does that make sense at all? And then with my daughter, I can just say, honey, listen, I know your brother's irritating. Welcome to life. You're going to grow up, you're going to have an irritating boss, you're going to marry someone irritating, then have irritating children. Right? Traffic's irritating, politicians are irritating, the New York Jets are irritating, even without Aaron Rodgers. Right? So if all you're ever going to do in life is react to irritating people or situations, you're going to be miserable, and I can't help you with that. But what I can help you with is learning how to control yourself and responding differently to your brother. Now I have an opportunity to teach 2 different kids, and that started with me controlling myself and partially laying down in the middle of the floor. It's weird, but I would try it. 2 other things quickly I'd work on is your own anxiety. Just watch. Our anxiety causes us to project out into the future. Right? If any of you have a strong-willed little one and they're going to preschool next year, just know you're going to get calls from the school. Your daughter will not sit still in class. She walks around all the time. She doesn't sit still in circle time. And you're going to freak out like, oh, what are we going to do? Do we have to medicate her? She can't sit still in circle time. Well, circle time's dumb. Because after you're 5, you don't ever have to sit in a circle, right? Nobody at the office was like, hey, Frank, 3 o'clock in the conference room, circle time. It's not a life skill. Right? Now, we do that as a joke, but there's an important part here, which we could spend an hour on, which we won't. You are going to have to decide what is important in life and what is arbitrary. That society, and sometimes churches, ask arbitrary things of people that don't relate to anything. Right? And so I'll give you where we came out of this with Casey was, I'm not really interested in grades. We want to raise a curious child who loves to learn. And there's a subtle shift there because when he's in 2nd grade and he's not reading the books on the established reading list, which were all picked basically for girls anyway, right? Because he wanted to read about things getting blown up. So when I went into the 2nd grade teacher, I was like, I love that you're his teacher. I love that you love my son and you want him to learn. We want the same thing, a curious child who loves to learn. My son is not interested in 1 book on that list, but he's interested in these 3. Would it be okay with you if he read those because they're grade level or beyond? Sometimes a teacher, and teachers have a hard job. Any teachers in here? It's a brutal job. You want to go in and teach a class of 20 kids who are all addicted to Minecraft? Right? Seriously, I mean, it's way harder than it was 3 years ago, 5 years ago. It is brutal now. It's a good thing the pay is so good. So, I'm just kidding. But some teachers would say, well, I'm going to have to mark your child down because he didn't read the right books. And I'd say, that's fine. Because I just want a curious child who loves to learn and read, and I'm not really interested in the grades. And most teachers were like, yeah, I just want him reading. So there are a lot of those things in life where you're going to have to decide. It's like your 8th grader that's not showing his math homework. Why do I have to show my work? Duh, I showed you by getting the answer right. Good luck arguing with that one. And I'd just rather have them say, like, we'll go talk to the teacher. And teachers can say, look, you got to show me the work, or I'm going to mark your grade down. And many of your Strongwell kids are going to be like, just mark the grade down. It's not worth it to me to do the extra work. How many of you do have a middle school age child in particular? Anybody? Okay, good luck. Do any of you have a middle school age boy? Okay, I usually make this joke because it's true. If we were here like on a Tuesday night, I was like, what do you think your son's doing at home? And I'll be like, nothing. He's not doing his chores and he's not doing his homework. He's sitting in a hoodie sweatshirt. He's playing video games because that's what they do. And then you look at them and you start thinking, if you would just apply yourself, right? You're capable of so much more. And I really encourage you to watch that language because we say things like if you would just apply yourself. What if I were to say, I know this is offensive, but what if I said to people in here, if you would just apply yourself, you'd be thinner. Really? You'd be like, we hate you now, right? Because there's an assumption, right? And there's like, you have to do, this is very New Englandy too, you have to do your best at everything. No, you don't. That's a lie. That's a standard you don't live up to. None of us in here do our best. We do the best at the right things, at the important things. And then you pay or manipulate someone else to do the other ones. A people pleaser. You get them to do everything. No, but there's truth. I encourage you with the middle school kids, really do watch this. It is a hibernation phase of life. They're no longer the little kids, but they're also not big kids yet. They've got hormones flying all through them, and they're subject to social media, which you and I didn't grow up with, thankfully. It's brutal. So it doesn't mean that you let them just lay there, but watch what happens. We see them just laying there, and we start to pick out all the things they're not doing right. And that's it. And then they eventually either say, forgive me for the language, screw you. Screw you. It's never good enough for you. Why would you even try? Because even when I do try, I didn't try hard enough. You didn't do it to the best of your... Please let go of that one, especially... They're not going to do it to the best of their ability. How many of you have a child who will do the bare minimum just to get by? If you have the courage this weekend, this is what I would go home and say to them. You know what I realized? You're strategically brilliant. No, it's not funny. No, this is not funny. It's true. What? Really follow this. Son or daughter, but I'll use son. You've determined you're in 7th grade, 8th grade. You already know grades don't count until high school. You don't care about school right now. And I understand why. It's largely arbitrary and it's boring and you don't see how it relates to your life. You don't care about it. And so you've figured out you can only play video games or play sports or whatever it is if you keep a B average or whatever average it is. Or in order to pass that next test, you have to get a 77.2. Now, a lot of us in here are like, why would you not do your best? Shouldn't you want to get 100 on that next? This child will get a 77.2 exactly. Why would you think about it, why would you put extra effort into doing something that you don't care about? So later we're going to get into how to get them, how to figure out what they care about and use that to motivate them. Because we spend their entire childhood, please care about grades. It's important, and you need to do school. And I will spend 18 years trying to get this kid to care about something I care about. And it will never work until he wants it. Does that make sense at all? We'll get to that, but I don't want you, I don't want you ruining your relationship with this child because he's not living up to your standards and because of your own anxiety about that child's future. Because, look, I've worked with a lot of kids. There are some of your kids, there might be a couple kids represented in here who will skate by, do the bare minimum just to graduate from high school. Then they'll take a year or two off, work a couple jobs, a few jobs. They take some time to grow up, mature a little bit. Some of your kids aren't emotionally mature. And then, in the course of working, they'll get a vision for what they want to do. And then they go to college at age 20. I'd rather have a kid go to college, start at 20, than go at 18 and go for 6 years. School's expensive. Right? And I know we're in Connecticut. We were just in New York, same thing. You're all highfalutin people up here. No, it's just in Northern Virginia outside of D.C. It's so much pressure, right? We all want the bumper stickers on the car of like down there it's Virginia Tech and UVA you want to go to, and here I don't know if it's Princeton, wherever it is, or Yale. I would rather have the bumper sticker that says, my son did his first 2 years at community college and saved me like 70 grand. We did a trip around the world. Well, my son was basically getting the same education for the first 2 years as your child did, and then he transferred to a really good school once he grew up and figured out. Watch, I'm just throwing some little things out because it can really save some harsh interactions. I've known a lot of kids in their junior and sometimes senior year who will say, oh yeah, I'm going to sign up for the ACTs, I'm going to do it, and they don't. And what they're doing is sabotaging themselves on purpose. They don't always know it because they don't always have the courage to say, Mom, Dad, I know you want me to go to college, but I'm just not ready. It's socially overwhelming for me to think of going to some big place, and I'm emotionally not ready for it because they fear in some homes, not saying yours, that there's going to be all this pressure, now you let me down. So they just sabotage. I'd rather have it open and them say, or you even say like, hey, I'm great. If you want to take a gap year or two, fine. If you want to live at home, fine, but you're going to be working at least 2 jobs. Like you're going to be working at least 40 or 50 hours. There's no laying around all day, and you're going to pay for X, Y, and Z, right? Do it in an equitable, but I want them working. I don't want them thinking like, I'm going to find myself for 2 years. Oh, you're going to find yourself working. That's where you're going to find yourself, right? And that's fair, right? So just know your child in that. So I encourage you to watch that anxiety of projecting into the future. The child you see at 4 or 14 is not the child you are going to see at 24 or 29. And I encourage you just to relax. And then the other thing we talked about is control issues. You're going to have a lot of fights with your kids over the way they do things, and I'm going to do some examples on that. So does that make sense so far? So let's do an example on de-escalating situations. This will be de-escalation, discipline, very, very practical. So one of the big triggers I had was when I would walk into a room and Casey would be yelling at my wife, right? And that happens in your home a lot where kids, strong-willed kids tend to take things out on their mom a little bit more, right? Except in your home because they know they can't. I'm just kidding. I'm just giving you a hard time. No, I'm going to give you, this will be good. This will be a really good one for your situation. So Casey's yelling at my wife. Typically what would happen, I come in, Casey, how many times do I have to tell you? You don't yell at your mother. And then I would lay into him. You know what? You keep that up, you're going to lose everything you own. You already leave, bless you, you leave everything, Legos all over the floor. You can't follow through. Quick little point. I was resentful toward my son when he was little because he was difficult. Everything was difficult. Hey, Case, get your shoes on. We need to go. Why is that difficult? Case, it's 9 o'clock. I let you stay up an extra hour. Go to bed. I'm not tired. I'm hungry. I'm scared. Why is that hard? Everything. Giving him food was hard, right? So I was resentful. And so I would use any opportunity where he did something blatantly wrong to then let out my resentment. Watch that, because those personal things are what wound kids and hurt your relationship. And then I would start escalating. You know what? Keep it up. Keep it up, young man. You know what? You already lost your video games for 1 week. You want to make it 2? And a strong-willed child's going to go, let's make it 4. Because inside they know, you need me on my screens. What are you going to do with me, right? So, or I said this once. You know what? One more word, young man. And you know what he said? Word. Okay. It's not funny when you were there. So, I would keep going, and I'd escalate. You know, keep it up, Case, keep it up. And I would see his face all red. You see when your kids' faces are red? And they're emotionally gone. They're past the point of no return. And yet I kept going until he would finally get upset enough to yell at me and then go upstairs and slam his bedroom door. I wanted him to do that because then I could walk downstairs and tell my wife, did you hear what your son just said to me? And that made me feel justified. And I always encourage men in here, men, you're going to feel justified yelling at your kids. They are disrespectful and defiant and don't listen sometimes. You're justified. But just because you're justified in doing it doesn't mean it's right. And it doesn't mean it works. And if you want a word that works with strong-willed kids, it's going to bother you, it is humility. Because as long as you're intent on going with this thing, you know what? Let's talk about your attitude right now, young man. And we go with this, it doesn't work with them. It will destroy your relationship. Humility, and for those of you who are faith, that's the defining characteristic of the authority figure that we follow, is great humility, right? Lay down your life for other people. I have every right to do X, but in that moment I choose to do this. Humility leads to contrition. If you've ever tried to tell your daughter, young lady, you need to apologize to your sister right now. No. If you don't apologize right now, I'm going to take away everything you own. Fine. Sorry, stupid sister. Right? How many of you get that? And half of you are like, pretty close to an apology. I think we'll take it. Right? So watch, in that moment, and this will sting a little bit. I don't do blame or guilt for people. I just want us to own our own stuff and then change it so we don't keep messing up and hurting relationships and just making things worse. So this is what I was really saying to my son in that moment. Casey, I need you to behave, because if you don't behave and do exactly what I tell you to do, I'm not sure I can behave, and you do not want to see me angry. That's what your dad did, right? That's what I did. So, in that moment, the truth is I needed my son to behave precisely because I couldn't. And we don't want that. So, how do we do this differently? I'll do a couple examples, but here are a couple principles. One, before you discipline, de-escalate the situation. It never, ever, ever works to walk in when the child's upset and I'm upset. We need to talk about your attitude. Like, when has that ever worked? Okay, Dad, can't wait. It just doesn't. What attitude? And it escalates. So I want to de-escalate. One of my favorite phrases that we use for de-escalating is this: motion changes emotion. Movement is a tool that I like to use to get kids to calm down, because talking tends to make it worse. How many of you have noticed when your kids are upset, more talking, got it, Mom, and then we keep going and they get furious. I believe it's provoking kids to anger. The other one I don't like, and again, all this stuff is up to you what you do, but I'm not a big fan of, honey, do you want to identify your emotions? Ugh, I hate that one. I don't want to bottle up emotions, right? But for the wives in here, if you're just having a bad day and your husband walks in the room, he's like, honey, do you want to identify your emotions? You'd be like, yeah, anger and resentment toward you, right? Because I think, look, most of the time, one, the kids don't know what their emotions are, and two, it's frustrating when I'm really upset and now someone's staring at me. Do you want to talk about your emotions? No, I want to hit you, right? And what do they always say? I don't know. What I think they're looking for is the adult, the leader in the home, to walk in and say, sounds like frustration to me. And what they really want is, I don't need to just talk about or identify my emotions. I need to know what to do with them. Does that make sense? Okay, good. Thank you for validation.
My children say that to me the last month.
What did they say?
Saying, I know I'm angry, or
What do I do?
I'm frustrated, but I don't know what to do with my anger.
Perfect.
They verbally say, I don't know what to do with my anger.
Perfect. Your kids are brilliant. So, no, that's awesome. So here are, I'll do 3 or 4 examples. I'm going to walk in with a little bit of intensity. And let me do a thing on intensity. It's related to this really quickly before I forget. Do any of you have kids who struggle with attachment issues at all? Okay. So this is important for all of our kids, but the ones who struggle with attachment issues, this is a really important concept. These kids often associate intensity with connection. But they don't distinguish between positive intensity and negative intensity. So if they do something, look at me when I'm talking to you, young man. For a kid who struggles with attachment issues, you know what that feels a lot like? Connection. My dad's angry at me, but at least he put his phone down and he gives a rip enough to yell. Because the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. For those of you, there's a certain number of you in a marriage now, and there's no hatred and yelling. There's just indifference from a husband or dismissive, right? And that hurts more than if you were yelling it, because at least I care enough to fight with you. I don't even care enough to fight anymore, right? That hurts. So just be aware that sometimes those kids, especially if you get sometimes adopted kids, foster kids, they're going to ramp things up very, very quickly because what they need is the intensity. And so I really try my hardest with these kids to give them positive intensity when they're doing things well. That was a good choice, my friend. Fist bump, boom, well done. Hey, I like how you handled that. Shows me you're growing up. Can you feel the intensity there? But here's what I don't do, a lot of words. And I don't stand there. You know what, honey? I'm really proud of you. Ugh. I hate that. For the strong, how many of your kids reject praise? You know why? Because one, it sounds fake. We never thought you'd actually make a good choice, and you just did, right? But you know what it really is? It's pressure. Now you're going to expect me to do that again, and I can't guarantee I'm going to do it. So I don't give a lot. With these kids, I give a lot of planting seeds. Really good job. I like how you handled that. Oh, that shows me you're growing up. And then I remove myself. I don't wait around. You're a good dad too, right? They're not going to say that. Mom, thanks for being so affirming. Like, they're not going to say that. It's awkward, right? So it's a lot of little seeds of like, I like how you handled that. It's pretty cool how you did that. Even in that low-key tone, sometimes it's really nice. It's really cool how you did that. And then I move on. Sometimes I discipline like that. Very low-key tone, right? Because now I'm not giving a lot of energy to that. So intensity. So give the positive intensity. And here's one more thing on that. Let's say you've got a younger child, and he or she makes a paper airplane and flies it, tries to fly it, and it doesn't fly well. So what's the strong-willed child going to do? Grab it, crumple. Stupid airplane! It's dumb. I hate that airplane. And every good mom and dad's going to come in the room, honey, that was a good airplane. Wrong thing to say. So here's what your child thinks. Duh, if it were a good airplane, it would have flown the right way. And now watch how this all triggers. You know what? You're not going to talk to me like that. I just did. Right now you're in a 4-hour fight over one little thing. How many of you have done that before, right? We all have been there. So here's intensity that I like. You know what? If I were you, I'd be frustrated too. You spend a lot of time trying to make that airplane, didn't fly right. That's frustrating. Now let me stop there. I'll add to it in a minute. What I didn't say was, so if I were you, I'd go punch a hole in the wall and hit your sister. It's not what I said. But I gave the intensity to, I validated the fact that it's frustrating. And I just discovered recently, this is the one area where women are just like men. Men with our wives, oh, honey, there's no need to be upset. If we were honest, we'd say, I'm immature. When you have emotions, I have no freaking idea what to do with it. And your emotions make me really uncomfortable. So could you please not do that stuff? Is that not true? That's true. Look, it is so liberating getting older. Guys, one day just come home and when your wife just say like, honey, you know I'm not mature enough to handle that. Right? Like, I have no idea. What am I supposed to? Because when I went to marriage therapy, I looked at what am I supposed to do? Because in my man brain, here's what I heard. Something's wrong. So I'm either going to use my superior logic and explain to you. Thank you. Back in the day, they didn't call it that. It was just calling being a jerk. I'm going to try to give you logic of why you don't need to be upset, right, and prove my point, or just dismiss you. There's no need to be upset. You know what's cool when you get older, when you don't have to control or be responsible for other people's happiness? When my wife is having a bad day, I can say, sounds like you're frustrated. If you want to talk about it, I'd love to listen, preferably at halftime. but I would love to listen. No, but if you want to go for a walk, but what I release myself from, I don't have to fix your mood. Honey, if you want to be in a bad mood for the rest of the day, for the weekend, you have every right to be. You're married to me. You should be in a bad mood half the time, right? I'm a lot to deal with. But if you want to be in a bad mood, be in a bad. I release you. Does that make sense at all? It's a very liberating because now, because a lot of wives will then, I feel like I need to change my mood just so my husband can deal with it. Right? Now you've got this whole thing, and that's beside the fact of I have to control my 6-year-old so that my 36-year-old doesn't get upset at the 6-year-old. And now you put a wife, which I did, in the position of now I'm managing everybody else's emotions in the house. That's brutal. Because now if my husband comes in and starts yelling at my child and I speak up, I'm undermining his authority, right? It's a really brutal thing sometimes that moms have to go through. And dads, we've got our own stuff, but I don't pick on women, I pick on men because I'm a dude. And wives pick on themselves enough, right? How many moms ever feel like they're doing a good enough job as a mom? I wish someone just raised say, you know what, I'm pretty good. None of my kids have murdered each other. I'm good. Better than Eve. So, yeah, their life, if they screw it up, whatever. It's not backing off, but I'm releasing myself from that. So that's where I've realized, moms, we do the same thing with your kids. Oh, honey, that was a good airplane. Honey, don't get upset. Right? And I get why, because some of your kids are actually violent, right? And I get that. But I'd rather validate, so let's play it through. If I were you, I'd be frustrated too. Put a lot of time into that. It's frustrating. Listen, I'm going to go to the bathroom. I'm going to go grab some water. Those are my go-tos. Some of your kids follow you everywhere, but they may not follow you in the bathroom. Some of them are weird and creepy, and they will. But if you say, hey, I'm going to clean the toilet. If you want to come with me, grab some paper towels. Sometimes that keeps them away because they have a fear of cleaning things. But I remove myself for a minute, and that gives them a little space to unwind. How many of you, and I know this as a dad, when I used to blow up in our home, you know what the worst part was? Now I come out of it, and I'm like, there's my family looking at me. That's embarrassing, true? Now it's like, I'm 45. I just melted down over we didn't have the right butter for my toast, right? Because I was tired. And now everybody's looking like, no, everything's okay, guys. Dad's all right. And it's humbling and embarrassing. You don't want people looking at you. So that's why when he's in the middle of his stupid freaking thing, dumb thing, and we're like, honey, calm down. It's the worst thing ever. Our name is called Celebrate Calm. Don't ever tell people to calm down. Whoever likes, you just need to calm down. Really, you know what you need to do? Right? Like that, it never works. It's horrible. And so when I remove myself, it gives them a little space to process that. It's an example we do with a mom and a daughter at a horse barn because our kids are really good with horses and animals, not kids. And you took your daughter to ride horses because it's really good for her, but she's struggling to put on her boots, right? Because our kids are very particular. She's trying to get on her riding boots, but not fitting the right way to dang. They're stupid boots, and she's throwing them down. And Mom's like, you know what? I spent $300 on those riding boots. If you don't treat them with respect, you're never going to ride a horse again. And what happens then? Fine. I don't want to ride the stupid, right? But if Mom were to say, oh, honey, I'm getting a call, and steps out of the horse barn for a minute and a half and comes back in, guarantee those boots are going to be on. But if you're standing, oh, honey, let me help you with the boots. Honey, let me help you with the boots. Your ass can be kicked. True? So that space part. And then when I come back in, now I come with some tense. So what are we going to do with that? What are we going to do with that frustration? How are we going to problem solve? How are we going to do it differently? If you can relate to something, say, you know what? Same thing happened to me at the office today or at the bank or whatever. My meal didn't go right and I was frustrated. You know what I've learned? When I walk away for like a minute and a half or a couple minutes and do something else and come back to it, it just tends to work better. There's a subtle thing in there, and this is for your teenagers. Once kids get older, I don't like to tell them what to do so much as I like to give them wisdom. I give them an idea, and so with Casey, it always sounded like, hey, Case, you know what I found in life? When this happens to me, if I handle it this way, it tends to go better. and then I'll go get a water or go to the bathroom. And so I let them own the idea without saying, you know what you need to do? You need to calm down and step away from it. I don't want to step away from it. Because if you try to tell them to do things in the moment, they resist. If I give them the idea, they can own it themselves without me standing over, waiting for you to make a decision right now while you're upset. Does that make sense at all? So, try that next time with the intensity. Let me finish out this example, and then we'll take a break, because I know you've been sitting for an hour, 15 minutes. I see that on the clock. We'll take a break, but let me finish this one. So, how do I come in the room? My son, what's your name, just if you don't mind? Lewis? Okay. So I come in. Hey, Lewis, I can tell you're frustrated. Listen, I've got a football. I'm going outside. When you're ready, if you want to play catch, come play catch with me. I'll help you with whatever you're struggling with. Hey, Lewis, I can tell you're frustrated. Listen, I'm going to go dump the Legos out in the living room. When you're ready, if you want to come build a spaceship with me, oh, that'd be really cool. There's an invitation there. You don't have to say, I can tell you're frustrated. Some kids get upset at that, so don't even say that. Hey, I'm going to go outside, play catch. There's an invitation. Sometimes you can't, you've got 3, 4, 19 children, whatever you have, and so you can't go out and play catch. But you're in the kitchen cooking, and you say, oh, man, if I were you, I'd be frustrated too. It's a really quick shortcut. If I were you, I'd be, hey, could you do me a favor? Could you go in the pantry and get the spaghetti sauce? Could you get that top off the spaghetti sauce for me? Kids, when they're upset, tend to feel out of control. I like to give them something they're in control of in that moment. How many of you do this at night before bed or sometime in the evening? You go to your kitchen and clean your kitchen sink. How many of you make sure like everything is out of there? Because inside it's kind of like, I can't control my spouse, I can't control my kids, my sink is going to be spotless. Is the one thing in life, so that brings you back into homeostasis. That makes you feel in control of something. So give some thought to what are the kitchen sink things, activities for your kids to do, and I'll expand it to this. Start making a list this weekend. Not if, but when your kids get really upset, what are 4 or 5 go-to activities they can do in that? Oh, you know what? Because this is weird, because a lot of your kids love shoveling mulch. I don't know why, but a lot of strong-willed kids, they will shovel mulch literally all day long. So if this is mom, she's like, oh, Dad forgot. He was gonna move the mulch from this side of the yard to that side of the yard. I bet you can't get that done before Dad gets home from work. So instead of, calm down, honey. Oh, I just remembered, Dad needs that move. Or an obstacle course, going out and saying, hey, I bet that you can't get through your obstacle course out back in less than a minute and a half. Think you can do that in record time? Give them something they're in control of. Another one I used to use at my house was I would keep things broken around the house because a lot of these kids are little fixers. And I'd be like, oh, dude, you know what? Just remembered, I've got a broom in the basement, it's broken. Could you find some duct tape and somehow fix that for me? So I was really upset because something was going wrong or Jimmy didn't let me play with his Legos and I'm really upset. And just saying like, well, just calm down. It's not a big deal. And so it's like, oh, could you go fix the broom? Now I'm in control of that. And they come up and they're like, is this good? I'll be like, dude, that's amazing. You're like MacGyver. And they're like, who's MacGyver? I'm like, I'm just old. Right? But, so one more example, and I'll tie it all together. This is really cool. I was doing a phone consultation with a family. They've got a 10-year-old son. And part of what I like to do in phone consultations and fixing situations is understanding what your kids do well. That's more what I pretty much know what all strong-willed kids do wrong. What I want to find out is what is your child's unique strengths? What are they good at? Well, this kid, he was really good at taking his family on hikes. He would pack a backpack, and then he would lead the hike because he had to be in control, of course. So this whole scene's going down in the kitchen. Dad walks in, kid's yelling at his mom. Dad wants to yell, right? Just want to cut it out. Instead, Dad, nonverbals are awesome, goes and grabs the little hiking backpack off the door, goes to the pantry, and starts filling it with food. What he knew was his son, like your kids, are very particular, right? And so he knew his son was going to be like, Dad, you're not filling the backpack with the right snacks. Now, Dad has a choice here. He would be justified in saying, you know what? That's disrespectful the way you're talking to me. And it is. But this dad in that situation chose to humble himself because he knew his son wasn't mad at him. His son was upset and frustrated, right? And so he said, you know what? You're really good at doing the backpack. Why don't you come do that? I'm going to grab some waters, and we'll go for a little hike. Does that make sense? Dad has every right to say, that's disrespectful. And I get that. And I'm just going to ask you, in these situations with these kids, when they're out of control, I don't correct them on that. Again, you have every right to. But it wouldn't work. You know what? If you're going to talk to me disrespectfully, you're going to just go to your room. Fine. I didn't want to sit stupid dinner with you anyway. Right? I mean, is that not realistic? And instead, that son and his father went for a little hike. Guess what the dad heard a little while into the hike? Dad, sorry. You lead them to contrition without the whole walk being like, you going to apologize yet? Think that. Look, for the moms and dads, think it all day long. When is he going to freaking apologize? I want an apology. And the moment you kind of release them from it, they tend to do it, right? And so that's that language of, hey, when you're ready. It's really important. How many of you are compliant rule followers by nature? Okay. So this stuff's hard for you because when someone tells you to do something, your instinct is just to do it. If you ask me to do it, my first instinct is ask why. How many of your kids do that? It's not always defiant. I'll tell you, it's irritating, but here's what it is. They're big picture thinkers. They're very strategic. And here's what they're thinking. Hey, I just heard you ask me to do something. I've got a different way I'd like to do it. And your good natural response is, I don't really care about your freaking creativity. I'm your dad. Do what I told you to do. True? And you're not wrong in saying that. I told you to do it. You need to do it right now. And the question of why is they're trying to figure out, could I do it a different way? And I'm going to go over that when we get back from the break, but it's not always defiance. So when I said, hey, son, hey, Lewis, when you're ready, it's like it released him to do it on his own terms without me standing there. You know what? You come into the living room right now, and we're going to talk about this. I just went in and gave him space because when I see my son or daughter walking into the room, walking outside to meet me, I know that they've humbled themselves because they know what they did was wrong. And I don't have to hammer them. Hey, Lewis, look, after we calm down and play catch, build with Legos, a couple things there. No eye contact. Men, all men, when they become dads, get a dad handbook that says, if your kids don't look you in the eyes, it means they're disrespecting you. Because men are like NFL wide receivers. We think everybody's disrespecting us all the time. And the noble part, true, we get disrespected over everything. Sorry. The noble part of respect for your husbands is this. Moms in general want their kids to grow up, be happy, and feel loved. I don't really want that for my son. I want to be successful and not make the same mistakes that I made. So the reason that I want so much respect is because if you respect me, you listen to me, and you won't screw up like I did. That's the noble part of it. It's just that we take everything. Eye contact, I don't give to kids when they're upset because they're usually ashamed when they're upset. The only time we give eye contact with our kids is when, look at me when I'm talking, when they're in trouble. That's why I like for you to come home sometime. Hey, look at me. Just made a good choice. I'm proud of you. Sounds weird. It'll freak your kids out. But you're starting to retrain the brain that when I want intensity, good intensity from my mom or dad, I do things well. So when you're ready, releases them to do it. And I'll close this with this. I'm now playing catch with my son. I'm building with Legos. We're going for a walk. We're doing an activity. I am now with my child. Instead of saying, to your room for the rest of the night, I brought my child to me. And what I've demonstrated, instead of I need you to behave, it's when your world is out of control, mine's not. I can handle you whenever, right? And that's really important. So I've gone on too long. Let's take a break. When I get back, I'll do ownership. We'll do some defiance. I'm going to do morning routine, 5 different ways, options for getting your kids to listen. But please move, because you've been sitting. It's a little bit warm in here, and so I can tell you're fading a bit. Drinks are out there, snacks, whatever you need. If you have particular questions you want to ask me, even now, I don't need a break. I can just answer some. Hey.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
sometimes it's very, very, very direct with those things. So, but there's larger things too. Some kids. Anyway, let me come back to that. Go ahead.
Yeah. So you having a good time? This is amazing. This is so good. I've been taking notes on my iPhone. When I'm on my iPhone, I'm not texting people, I'm taking notes.
I know.
So I wanted to let you know also, we have a couple of small groups that are following on to this. Kirk is only here for today, but we have small groups to support you in parenting. And there's two options. You'll see them on the table in the back, so just sign up if you'd like to be part of one of those small groups. One of them is how to nurture your kids in faith, and the other, Tim will talk about adolescence. So those are two options. We also have a vacation Bible school coming up in the summer, and there's a sign-up sheet for that in the back. Linda Smith is our director of children's education, and so we offer Sunday school programs during our 2 worship services, and we also offer all kinds of Saturday events, like we just had an Easter egg hunt before Easter, and we have pumpkin carving, all kinds of fun things that we do with the kids. So that's an option. I want to introduce you to Tim Fennell.
Hi, everyone. No, I think we're fine. I can probably do loud enough. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm Tim Fennell. I am the youth director here at Hopewell Reformed Church, and I just want to give you a quick rundown of what we do here. So, our entire goal for the youth ministry is from middle school through high school, and is to reach out to all kids and give them a chance to have a comfortable place to hear the gospel, have fun, but also be able to ask questions, like doubt, and spend time with us. And so we really love to, we focus on discipleship, but we also focus on loving the kids at where they are in their lives and where they're at. So we do one of these things called contact work, and so I spend time with them outside of the church as well. So I'll go to like their plays, their lacrosse games, soccer games, things like that, and cheer them on, and we bring our other kids from the youth group as well. We also have youth group on Thursday nights, and that's at 7 o'clock every Thursday. We'll do hangout nights, that is geared for our students to be able to invite their friends who would never step foot into a church or don't really want to engage in the church aspect. And it gives our students that chance to invite them and for everyone to be comfortable and us to have fun together. So those are some of the things that we do. We are also, we partner with Young Life, which is in our area, and that's for our high school students. And that's an outreach ministry, and we're doing camp with them this summer. So if you guys have any questions about camp, Young Life Camp, just let me know. And we also partner with Bridge Builders. And so Bridge Builders is based in the Hudson Valley, and we go and serve our community here in Poughkeepsie. And so like one of the things that we do as a camp and as with our students is we might paint the Boys and Girls Home. We will go and feed the homeless, different things like that for the week. And so it's a really wonderful ministry that they have here as well. Two other things that we are doing. So I have a really big passion for surfing. We actually have a great surfing here in New York, surprisingly enough. And so any of our students that want to learn how to surf, we will teach them, and we'll also do a little bit of a Bible lesson with them as well. But it's a great opportunity for them to become a part of a different community that they've never might have experienced. The surf community is pretty unique, and they're really a fun group of people to be around. And then next year, we're getting together an international mission trip to Nosara, Costa Rica, to help build homes for families there because every year with the rainy season, their homes actually wash away. And so this is a great chance for our students to learn some skills of building, but also, like, we're going to build a house in 5 days. It's absolutely amazing. And they get to do that, and they get to meet the families that they'll be serving and everything else like that. So also, I think there's a sign up out in the back. We will be doing a book study it's a book by Chap Clark called Hurt 2.0, and it's on adolescence and understanding where our students are going through middle school, all the way actually up to the age of 26. And so that has aspects of parenting, but it's looking at case studies. And we'll be going through that book, and it's a faith-based study as well. So if any of you are interested in signing up for that class, I believe the sign-up's out there. But thank you.
All right.
He actually did say surfing. Did he say surfing?
In the Hudson Valley, in the Hudson River, actually, no. That's what happens when we hire a youth minister from Florida. So, yeah, we actually do have a surfing club. That's pretty cool.
That's cool. So I just got an email from a mom. This is cool. Sitting in a parking lot, my daughter's climbing on top of my car, banging on it, trying to break my side view mirror. Her counselor told me I should just ignore her when she's acting really bad. Blah, 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 she's 6. So that's one of those ones where the ignoring isn't going to really help, but some of the intensity may, right, for a little bit. So let's do this. Let me skew this a little bit older. I'm going to hit a lot of smaller, quicker things right now. Let's do an internal motivation thing. For those of you who have slightly older kids, and if your kids are younger, take this in the back of your mind for a little bit later, but you can still apply the principles now. So I'm going to do a little bit more robust version of this. So how many of you have at least one child who's a little bit more academically motivated? Okay, good. So every day they're at school, or if you're at homeschool, they're sitting, they're doing their work, and they're good at it. They're good at doing school. They're good at memorizing information. They're probably good socially, all those things. So they're using their gifts, and they're getting rewarded. Good grades, people come along, oh, that's awesome. You're going to take honors classes, go to college, get a good job. Awesome. Really good, easy path in life, or nice path. So then you have your strong-willed kids who are sitting in school, and here's what they're thinking. My entire childhood is based on 2 things, good behavior and good grades. I'm 0 for 2. And they begin to shut down. They're not naturally good at school. Very bright. Some of your kids can build a robot from scratch, but they won't do a stupid worksheet at night, right? And they do struggle, by the way. They do struggle with, their struggles are very real, and I'm not doing this as a sympathy thing, but as a reality of, for many of your kids, this is what we're telling them. We're going to send you this place for 12 years that pretty much exposes all of your weaknesses and none of your strengths. Because you're not good at sitting still. You're not good at memorizing information that you're not interested in. You're not really good at getting thoughts from your head to paper without a lot of struggle, right? You're socially. Many of you have kids who are really good with older people, older kids, little kids, and animals, but they struggle with kids their own age. Hey, for 12 years, you're going to go to school with only kids your own age. Have fun. It's hard. And I want to normalize some of that for your kids. Instead of just, if you would just apply yourself, be honest with them. Some of these things are going to be harder for you. Give them perspective. Memorizing information is not your strength. Here's the good news. After you get out of school, you don't have to memorize information the rest of your life. What you have to do is think about it. You have to critically think, well, you're already really good at that, and that's why you're good at chess and checkers and Legos and arguing with us, right? But that is part of it. So give them that perspective to know that what they're experiencing now, it isn't translatable to, right? It's not. For a lot of your kids are just not good at school, and they're going to kill it in real life. And they don't know that. So those other kids are sitting at school. They're good at using their gifts and passions, getting rewarded for it. That builds confidence. Our kids are over here, and just about everything that they're good at, they don't get grades for. Helping neighbors down the street, running their own little business. You don't get a grade for that. So here's the process I encourage you to go through. Number 1, and I would write these things down for your kids. Make a list of their natural gifts, talents, and passions. What are your kids naturally good at doing? Not academically, but what are their gifts? And if they are good at building with Legos, then go a little deeper of like they can see well in 3 dimensions. So I'm thinking engineer, architect, right? And go deep with that. Well, they're really good. Who do they connect well with? Little kids, animals? Write that down. Because, look, longer version is this. Because if we do that with the other kids all the time. He's really good at math and really good in science. Right? We write that down and we expose them to math camp and science things and all kinds of cool stuff. So with our kids, I want to make that list. Number 2, find ways for your kids to use their natural gifts, talents, and passions outside the home. And number 3, accountable to another adult. Other adults can do 2 things for your kids that you can't do. Number 1, they will see good things in your kids. If I met any of your strong-willed kids, I guarantee I'd walk away and say, kid's amazing. It's a great conversation. Because I don't have to tell your child to go to bed and brush his teeth. But 2, I could hold your kids accountable in ways that you can't. Because I'll talk to your kids like this. And I'll say, hey, if you want to come to my next event and help me sell my programs out there, I'll give you a commission. Come do it. But if I hear from your mother that you're mouthing off, if you're not keeping a B average and not doing your chores, you're not working for me. Yes, sir. Why? Because they care about coming on the road with me and doing that. Does that make sense? So what I want to find is, what do they care about? So let me give you a few examples putting this together. So we were at a live workshop. There's a mom sitting over to my right. She said, I've got a 12-year-old daughter. She just has a bad attitude. She won't do her schoolwork. What consequence can we give her to get that moving? And I really want you to give some thought to, the question was, what consequence will help my daughter not feel bad about herself anymore? Right? It's kind of what consequence can I give to get my daughter motivated because we haven't found anything else? There is none. So I asked her really quickly, we have a short break, tell me about your daughter. What does she love doing? Loves soccer, connects with the little kids. So I said, Mom, here's what I want you to do. Go in your community, find a soccer coach who's teaching little kids, and go up and say, hey, teaching little kids, I've got this 12-year-old daughter. She's awesome with kids. Looks like you're a little overwhelmed. She loves soccer. Could she come out one night and help you with practice? Coach says yes. By the way, if you can get, this is huge, if you can get another adult to ask your child directly, it's really, because you're just saying, honey, I have a really good idea. Nope, I'm out. If it's your idea, it's stupid. True? So that coach said, Rebecca, heard you're good at soccer, like helping out Tuesday night, can you come out? Rebecca goes out on Tuesday night. At the end of practice, she gets hugs from 10 little girls. These little girls always love the older girl and the teenage girl. She comes home from practice. Is she bad attitude? No, she's got a great attitude right now. Why? Because she used her gift. She's good with kids and she's good at soccer. And someone affirmed her and she found she had something to give. And in our society, the kids are just struggling with anxiety, depression. Knowing that you have something to give someone else is a great antidote to a lot of the ills that teenagers have, right? Because they're just on video games a lot. They're social media. It just creates all of that. So she comes home. So the coach says, hey, Saturday morning, we've got a game. I need you there. So she works Saturday morning. After practice, 2 separate sets of parents came up to her and said, Rebecca, we don't really know you, but our daughters never stop talking about you. Our daughter's struggling in school. Would you consider tutoring our daughter? Not knowing Rebecca has not done schoolwork for years. But now watch. Rebecca now has a reason to do her schoolwork. Because, not from mommy and daddy, not because society and teachers and everybody else want, but because I want to help these young girls because I'm good at that. And then that coach says, Rebecca, I want you here twice a week, but I'm looking for a leader to be around these little girls. So if you come with a bad attitude, you're not doing your schoolwork, you're not working for me. So Rebecca began doing her schoolwork. Why? For herself. Because she found something she cared about, not for mom and dad. Is she doing her homework with a good attitude? No. It's still dumb and stupid. But she's doing it. And I would let go of that expectation. We do everything with happiness and excellence. No, we don't. I don't really care if you have a good attitude. Just get it done. True? Teenage boy, really good at computers, right? Hey, what do you want to do in life? I want to be a YouTuber. So do I, right? It's probably not going to happen, dude. But what are you really good? So we found this kid. He was really good with older people. So a guy that ran the seniors ministry at the church came up and said, Jacob, heard you're really good with electronics, computers. Got all these older people in my seniors ministry. Don't know how to work their iPads, right? They want to get on Facebook to keep up with their kids and grandkids. Would you come in? Wednesday nights we meet for dinner early because they're old, so they can get home for Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune. Would you come in and help out? Jacob comes in, helps out. 12, it's hard to do. 12, a bunch of old people look at this kid and say, you're really good at this. Have you thought about going to college for IT? Because you can make a lot of money in that. You could do that. Now, instead of mom and dad bugging him, he's got other people speaking into his life. Now he's got an opportunity to make some money because the seniors ministry guy says, hey, these people pay you to come to their house and hook up all their electronics. Look for ideas. And here's one, older people. I don't know if I mentioned that before. They're fantastic with strong-willed kids. Even getting your kids to go for 2 hours, a couple days a week, down to Mr. and Mrs. Henderson's house to help change light bulbs and rake leaves or do things. Your kids will do things for other people that they won't do for you. And this is not being funny. It's just a reality. When they're down there, these people are saying, man, you're amazing at this. You're really good at this. We appreciate you. See, your other kids are getting that in school. You're so good at math. You're so good at school. All A's. Don't you feel great about yourself? And these kids are like, you never behave well. You're not applying yourself. And now we give them a couple hours where this older couple or whoever is saying, man, you are good at this. So respectful. And side benefit, it gives you 2 hours away from your strong-willed child. So you and your compliant kids can actually be at home, enjoy life. Without the other, because the strong-willed child takes up 80% of the home's energy, true? It's exhausting. And it's exhausting for them because your voice is irritating and your expectations are something, true? Not, you know what I mean. I'm a big fan of getting kids, what partially changed Casey's life was, oh, by the way, cool principle. Whenever you tell your child to stop doing something inappropriate, you have to give them something appropriate to do. The way we got Casey off of Call of Duty 2 back in the day was to say, hey, I recognize because I asked him, said, I'm curious, great phrase, I'm curious. Why do you play video games so much? You find out there's a lot of order and structure, something they feel in control of. It's a way they connect with other people, stimulated to the brain, it's a challenge. Here are the big ones we miss. Confidence. Some of your kids aren't very good at a lot of things, but they're really good at their video games. How do you become confident in life? You're good at stuff. It's not because people told you you're good. It's because you know inside that you're good. Well, they're good at it. And so competence breeds confidence. So with my son, I found out he played Call of Duty 2 because it was meeting like 6 or 8 needs inside. So to come along and say, hey, I know this is like your sole way to get this, 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 and these, but it's really not good for you. Cut it out. Makes a lot of sense, Dad. So I acknowledged that and then said, hey, what else would you want to do? What else really excites you? He said, I want to learn how to fly airplanes. I was like, bad choice. It's really expensive, and I have a fear of flying. So I went to this little airport close to us, or like one of those small little regional airports, and it's $50 a lesson. It's money. So I came home and I said, Case, that was back then. I don't know what it is now. With inflation, it's probably $5,000 a lesson. So I said, Case, here's the deal. $50 a lesson. I'll pay for half if you pay for half. Where am I going to get $25 per lesson? Job. I'm only 12. Well, you play ice hockey, you're not that good. Have you ever thought about, instead of me wasting all that money, you could ref hockey games? And it's interesting. It's a funny story, but it's true. He was awesome as a ref. Why? Because he got to put other kids in a penalty box. How cool is that? Just think. As a ref, he's in control. He's got a whistle to blow. He's telling adults what to do. It's also very fast-paced. And you have to be to be a good ref, you don't have to make all the right calls. You have to be consistent and decisive. Strong-willed kids, he was decisive. He didn't take any crap from fans, right? When men were yelling, ref, you stink, he'd be like, what number's your son? I'll put him in the box next, right? Like my son did not take any, right? But you put your kids I want you to put them in the right environment where they thrive. Instead of spending 18 years trying to fit them into an arbitrary box that's just not going to work. It's just going to make you really uncomfortable, right? Just like the photographer dude. Freaks me out. So, I'm going to be like your kids and not smile right? Give that stuff. Oh, we want to get our picture on the first day of school. How many of you found that was a disaster with your strong-willed child, right? Honey, it's your first day of school. Yeah, I hate school. I don't want to go. Not smiling, right? You just have to chill. Don't get from behind. I have a big bald spot, and I didn't wear my belt today. I feel so self-conscious. So, whatever you want to do, dude. So, he's getting crowd shots now. So put them in those situations, and what we found is, once he started reffing hockey games, he was very good at it, felt confident, started flying airplanes. Well, that makes you confident because if you fly and don't die, very few people can do that. So then he started playing his video games less because we met the need somewhere else. Does that make sense? It's kind of a cool thing. I'm going to close this up and just say, be really curious about what your kids are curious about. Follow their passions with things. Now, this doesn't mean if your kids are signing up for them, don't buy expensive musical instruments because they're not going to practice and they're going to quit. How many of your kids have done that, right? And dads, they're not going to practice at sports, but if you would practice, you'd be able to. How many found strong-willed kids don't practice that hard? They just want to play the game. It's just the way they are. I have nothing else to tell you except don't spend a lot of money, don't have high expectations. They will largely teach themselves how to do things. My son taught himself German. He is fluent in German, and he is a really good guitar player. But he taught himself watching YouTube. Because I don't want some teacher to tell me. I don't want to learn how to. I took him once to see B.B. King because my son likes blues music. And we met him, and we got to talk to him. I was like, good, he's going to reinforce. So I went up. I said, Mr. King, when did you learn how to read music? He said, son, I don't know how to read music. I feel the music. I was like, you suck, B.B. King, right? So that's what he told. And my son was like, Told you, Dad. I was like, fine. I can't read it or play it. You play it pretty well. See, they experience things. I was in Northern Virginia, again, a place with a lot of high expectations, like New York and Connecticut. Like, there's so much pressure. And these parents came out. They're awesome parents. Were like, our daughter won't practice piano. And I was like, well, what is she? But does she play by her? Well, she composes stuff, but she won't practice. I was like, she's composing music. That's practicing. She just doesn't want to listen to the old Russian lady that you hired. She wants to do it herself. So they're going to do it a different way. Does that make sense at all? Great. Let's do some tough stuff, some good. So I'm going to do, I want to do morning routine. And even if you don't struggle with morning routine, I'm going to demonstrate 4 or 5 different methods of getting kids to do stuff so that you'll have a lot of things in your toolbox, because it's not just one thing. So one of my favorite things we talk about a lot is giving kids tools to succeed, giving kids tools. So a lot of your kids don't like getting up for school for good reason that we've talked about. So rather than come in right away in the morning, hey, come on, get up, get up. I know you didn't sleep well because you got a lot of anxiety because your mind runs all the time. And I know I'm about to tell you the 5 things you least want to do early in the morning. Get up and brush your teeth, brush your hair, eat something, get your clothes on, go to that place where you're going to be on red on the behavior chart. Nobody likes you. Ready? Right? Because that's kind of morning, right? Is that not true? That's kind of morning. So here's a tool, younger kids, but it works. And it'll sound funny. Try this Monday morning. Hey, guess where I hid your breakfast? Outside in the obstacle course. Bet you can't find it. How many of you have younger kids who would love doing a treasure hunt early in the morning? Then I have one piece of advice for you. Just do it. Just do it. Who cares if it's weird? Some of you have kids who would love to be outside in the morning eating their breakfast with the chipmunks. And they're happy outside. How many of your kids would love that? They're happy. You're inside with your easy kids, and you're like, he's out there. Let's enjoy breakfast. Right? And look, some of you are going to be like, well, that's excluding. No. Some of your kids love that. And I'm getting this a lot with older kids, like, well, we're planning a trip to Disney or someplace, but our 14-year-old son doesn't want to go. Should we let him stay with his uncle or aunt or whoever? And my honest answer is, if he's happy as a clam, staying behind, well, one, you save a ton of money. Two, why force a kid? Well, we just do everything together as a family. Well, not in a fun way. And this is reality. I know we have our vision of like how we always wanted to do things. When you have the strong-willed child, it's going to look different. And people are going to judge you. Do what works for you. And I know families that have done that, and they kept, and the kid stayed on his aunt and uncle's farm. And he had an awesome time for the week. And the family had an awesome time. Well, didn't he miss them? Not really. And they didn't, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. You're raising adults. You're not raising little kids. I'll give you one other one. This is a really nice family I'm working with. They've got 4 kids or 6 of them. And there's a really solid, good Christian family. And they've always been like, well, the one thing we do every Sunday morning is we go to church together. And I'm like, awesome. Very grounding, awesome thing to do. But they've got this one kid who's 14, and they moved. They went to a new church. And one of the ushers said something to him, and our kids are very sensitive. The kid didn't take it the right way, and he said, I made a vow to myself, I will never step foot in that church again. Now, he did say, I'll go down to the street to that other church, and he got up at 8:30, he went to the 8:30 a.m. service, early on a Sunday. So the dad's like, well, shouldn't we force him to go with us? And I was like, you can. And there's nothing wrong with saying, look, here's the one thing we do every week. This is what we do. If you're not going to do that, then there's no privileges, no choice. But as I talked to him, he said, what do you really think? And I said, I think that that son would be super happy down at that other church. He will listen to the pastor, and he will start making friendships there because you guys aren't there watching over him. It gives him some, so I said, drop him off. Let him Uber there. And the 5 of you go to your other church and enjoy your time together. He will be happy, and you don't have to be distracted whole service wondering if your son's going to cause issues. Again, there's no right answer to that one. What I tend to point out is that it's also not wrong to sometimes do things with this child that are different. Well, aren't you letting him get away with things? I don't know. What I really wanted more than anything than this perfect family ideal is I wanted each of my kids to go to church and hear something that moves them and inspires them, and they connect to God somehow. And if it works better for him down at that church because he's doing it alone, I'm okay with that. Again, gray area, and you have every right to say, we're not doing that. We all go together, and we're all going to be miserable. I'm kidding. Now, I just don't want you to think there's something wrong or you're giving in. These kids, it's difficult. So anyway, so that's a tool I give a kid. A tool, here's a different way to do morning routine. By the way, after school, with little kids, give them the treasure hunt thing. Hey, I hid something, bet you can't find it. Get them outside moving. Because it's better than, hey, I know you were sitting all day and people were telling you what to do. As soon as you get home, why don't you take your shoes off and grab your backpack? We'll go through your folder and I'll stand over you for 2 hours complaining that you're not doing your homework fast enough. Ready? Right? Like, I'm also, random things. I try to keep things that are at school, right? Let's say that, let's say you're my wife and at work you struggled with some project and I heard about it and you get home, I'm like, well, honey, I heard your boss didn't really like the project. What are we going to take away tonight? Right? Like, that stays at work, right? Because our kids get in trouble enough. It's like, I heard you did that at school. Now they're in trouble at school, and now they're in trouble at home. And eventually, when you're in trouble that much, screw it. Screw you. So I like to separate that a little bit. Tools I'll come back to in a second. Let me do this. Let's do a tough approach. So, tough discipline without screaming and all those things. So this is one I did with my son for a little while when he was going to a private school because he couldn't stay in any schools. He didn't even make it at Montessori. My son was so awful, he couldn't even make it to Montessori school. And they love everyone. So, Casey, here's the deal. School, carpool leaves. I leave every morning, 7:21 a.m. My time is important. Every minute you are late, you cause me to be a minute late for my work. And my time's important. So, every minute you are late past 7:21, you will choose to forfeit 10 minutes of your screen time at night. So, first morning, he gets in the car. I hold up the phone. He's 3 minutes late. Seriously, Dad? You know how they say it with that really, and you want to squeeze their face off, right? Seriously? 3 minutes is good for me. I was like, that is pretty good for you. But just realize you chose to forfeit 30 minutes of screen time tonight. Seriously? It's not fair. I was like, I don't play fair. I play to win. My time is more important than yours. You can leave that part out, but I don't have a problem saying with that. My time is more important than his. Right? And you can leave that off and just say, my time is important to me. I value my time. That's a self-respect issue. Right? So, you chose to lose that. Now, how did he respond? Dad, thank you for being consistent, following through. It makes me feel safe as a child. Right? It's not what he said. Duh, this is stupid. You're supposed to be a parenting expert. I don't know why anybody would buy your materials. This is dumb. So the whole way to school. Did I respond to him even though he was disrespectful? No, because he wasn't mad at me. He was mad at himself. Did he give me a hug before he ran into school? He slammed the door and walked off like this because that's a trigger, and I want to get out of the car and say, you're not going to walk like that into school. You walk like... So we get home that night. I have to go into his room, right? Because when he was a little bit older, when I finally calmed myself, then I handled a lot of the stuff in the house because I could stay kind of calm because my son is basically me. So I popped in and I said, hey, I just wanted to remind you, you lost 30 minutes. You chose to forfeit. And again, another meltdown. Your kids are going to fight and argue and complain, and I want you to lead. I don't want you to explain. If you want to write something down, say, stop trying to convince my kids of things. Modern-day parents think, you know what, if I just tell them the right thing in the right way, they'll be like, Mom, I've never seen it that way before. Right? Instead of like, here are a couple good ones. Guys, little kids, guys, you want to go to the park this afternoon? No. I'd really just rather sit here and play with a screen. I'd rather play with a screen almost all the time. True? It requires. So if you ask them, it's going to be, well, guys, it's really pretty out. It was a long winter. You guys will have fun. Yeah, no. Instead, I'd rather go with, hey, guys, let's fill the backpack. We leave for the park in 3 minutes. I don't want to go. Yeah, we're going. And then you march. In fact, but don't turn around. Mom, it's hot out. Mom, I have to pee. Mom, my legs are going to fall off. Mom, no. Don't turn around. Just keep moving. Yeah, I know. They fall off. Can I take a picture? Because that would be really cool if your legs actually fell off. But the idea is I'm leading without emotion. I'm not trying to convince, and I'm also not shaming them. You know, when we were kids, we walked to school uphill both ways. You guys are lazy. Whatever. Lead a little bit more, right? So here's in essence what that discipline, a few discipline tools. One is it's usually even matter of fact, and it's very few words. I don't make it personal. That's where we get in trouble. You know what? I do so much for you. You know what? Your brother does that. You know what? How are you ever going to be successful in life if, it's just like we keep piling on out of our frustration. There's no guilt in that. Just stop it. Right? And because that's all about my own frustration. My discipline is, look, I'm not angry at you. I'm not mad at you. And here's the essence of it. I simply do what I told you I was going to do. I'm not creating a lot of drama. I know you're going to create drama because you don't like what I just told you. And I'm okay with that. I would even say that sometimes to Casey when he was a teen. Look, I'm about to tell you something you're not going to like and that you're not going to want to do. I don't need you to like it. If you're unhappy raking the leaves, I'll pop some popcorn and pull up a lawn chair and watch you be miserable. I don't need you to have a good attitude. Like, release them from it. I release you from having a good attitude doing your homework. Complain about it. You know a good one for, someone remind me of the venting 7.5 minutes, but let me hit this one while it's in my brain. For those of you with younger kids, never ask this question. Guys, ready for bed? Why would you do that? You may as well just say, guys, I'm exhausted, you're tired, you want to fight for like the next 45 minutes? before I pray for you, don't use the word bedtime, because it's a trick, right? How many of your kids, it's like when kids come to the beach, right? Because I used to live at the beach, and you're like, guys, ready to get out of the water? Duh, no. I got 1 week at the beach all year. You want me to get out of the ocean and go up to and take a shower and put on uncomfortable clothes to go to some smelly seafood restaurant where we've got to wait in line in the summer and it's hot and dad gets upset? No. So instead of saying like ready for bed, it's like, you know what I'd like to do? I'd love to finish that story that we began reading last night. See, I just said we're going to bed without using that horrible word. I'm not saying that'll work all the time, but just there are little triggery things that we do all the time. So, who forgot to remind me of venting. So, some of your kids, this is really important, verbalize everything. So you go to Disney, spend $8,000 for 3 days, and they'll complain every day. They're miserable. You get home, 2 weeks later, grandparents come, Grandpa, let me tell you what we did in Disney. It was awesome. It was horrible. So know that some kids just need to verbalize it because that's how they're processing it, but they're really not that miserable. Sometimes you can try it. Here are a couple of little small things. Vent with them. You know what? That is frustrating. Reminds me of the other day when I went to the store and they didn't have X. It's frustrating. It's that intense validation. Sometimes I would do this with Casey at a certain age. He would just vent. I'd be like, Casey, here's what we're doing. Every day after school, you get 7.5 minutes, because I like interesting time limits. It sticks in the brain. You get 7.5 minutes to vent about anything you want. Tell me how terrible your teachers are, how you don't like school, it's arbitrary. Tell me whatever you don't like. 7.5 minutes, lay it on me. And I will listen to you, and I will probably agree with most of it. But after 7.5 minutes, we problem solve. I give you no more attention after 7.5 minutes unless we're problem solving. Because I'm not walking around whining and complaining about life. Now watch, you got to do that if you're a hyper-political person and you listen to talk radio 6 hours a day and then come home and spout about how America's going to whatever every night. You're just modeling the same anger. True? Well, it's okay if Dad does it. Yeah, but I love America. Okay, I get that, but you're miserable. So, Dad, vent for 7.5 minutes about whatever president you don't like, and then after that, let's figure out a way to make our community better. That'd be great. Your kids will turn half of this stuff around on you. It's awesome. Mom, you're not doing what you asked me to do. Mom, if I were you, I'd be frustrated too. I haven't done homework for years. That guy said to control your anxiety, though, and I believe you're capable. So it's one of our favorite phrases. Oh, someone do remind me of anxiety after this, please. Someone shout out after these, just at some point say, do the anxiety thing, because it's huge. So the tough approach, even, matter of fact. Let me do a couple more of those. Just, hey, guys, I give you 27 minutes on your video games. 27 minutes. After 27 minutes is up, when I come in the room, if I hear, hold on, we just need to save it. We need to get to the next level. You have chosen to lose your video games for the next 3 days. However you want to do it. And then just follow through and do it. When you come in the room, you know what? If you guys would have, none of the snotty, just walk in and say, hey guys, just wanted to remind you, 3 days without. Seriously, you suck. You stink. Sorry, I use that word on purpose because some of your kids will pull out some really nasty stuff at times, and I'll do defiance as well. So I just do that and enforce that. But here's the point I wanted to get to. Sometimes teach your kids impulse control. Hey guys, got video games back. You get 27 minutes. Here's the deal tonight. If you turn off your video games 2 minutes early, I will give you an additional 4 minutes tomorrow night. Because I want to start to try to teach delayed gratification. I know this is a dumb example, but I really tried to work on this with Casey. We'd go to Red Robin when he was little, and I'd say, Casey, tonight, how many fries are we leaving on the plate? He's like, why would you leave Red Robin fries on your plate? So you can prove that you can. It's called self-discipline. And if I do it, you do it. And we would do it. He'd complain at first, and then it became a thing of how we could do it. You have to practice. You don't have to do anything. I encourage you to practice self-discipline, delayed gratification in very small ways. Because if you say, hey, if you turn off your video games 10 minutes, they're never going to do 10 minutes early, they can't do it, right? He learned self-discipline. And I didn't scream at him. No, I'm not stupid. They're bottomless, yeah. No, it was just a matter of me demonstrating. There was no benefit besides the benefit of saying no to it, like learning some self-control, right? So that was we always had a rule of we don't buy anything when we go there. Like if we went to like back in the day, Best Buy was like a big deal, and like you get your big TV for $700, now you can get a big TV for nothing. But salesmen would always be like, it's only for today, and so I'd always teach it like, it's not just for today. The dude wants his commission. If I come 3 days from now, he'll give me a deal. And we would walk out of the store. But Dad, no. So a lot of it is modeling what you do. I had a thing early, if you have little kids, never, ever, ever, ever. They don't ever get to pick out anything in the checkout counter line. Ever, 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 ever. Because the one time that Dad's like, go ahead and pick something, you're done forever. Dad lets me do it, cut it out. So, let me do a couple more, and then I'll do the anxiety. Connection. Connection is a really beautiful way to get your kids to listen to you. Couple examples. My daughter's upstairs. We've got to go. Hey, Grace. Grace, come downstairs. Grace, honey, it's time to go. Grace, as soon as you hear your tone change, either step back or just drink. Because it's not going to work good after. It's not going to work well. As soon as Grace, if I have to tell you one more time, which guarantees what? You're going to have to tell her like 10 more times. Some days, rather than going that whole, Grace, if you don't get down here right, some days I take the 43 steps up to her bedroom, and I go in her room and say, I'm tired too. I don't really want to go. I don't want to drive through traffic. Let's get in the car. On the way, tell me about X. And I ask her about something she's interested in. And you can take this as bribery. I see it more as connection. You know what? If we both go on the way home, let's stop and get a frozen yogurt. Let's stop and get an ice cream. Is that bribery? Maybe. It's more connection. And it's that thing of, I don't want to go either. Right? Rather than, you know what? Sometimes in life you have to do things you don't want to do. Thanks for the other life lesson. It just doesn't, right? If you want, look, the easiest way to do it is if you want your kids to exhibit some kind of character trait, just you exhibit it. Don't lecture about gratitude. There's nothing more annoying. It's really good to be grateful. Ugh. I get it. The pastors, they're like, live your life with gratitude, right? It's really important to be giving toward, are you giving after church on Sunday morning when you cut people off on the way out of church to get the lunch? Let someone cut in front of you. Exhibit that in front of them. They're watching every single thing that you do. Are you patient with your friends? Are you patient with that person? Because I heard you talking about the president, and you weren't being that nice. You told me to be nice to the kids that I don't agree with at school and my teachers, but you're not nice to the president. Sorry, I didn't mean it. True? I went to a homeschool convention. It is all raging conservative Christian. It is. They're all conservative. And I said, how many of you have prayed? Because they're all, look, I'm from that background. It is all just like, nope, you got to do. We're evangelicals. You do scripture. We're literal. And I was like, how many of you have prayed for the current president? And 4 hands out of 700 went up. And I said, apparently there are only 3 Christians in this crowd who actually do what Scripture said. And yet you get on your kids about things. And yet every day you demonstrate hatred for another human being. And that goes both ways. Liberal people do it too. Conservative people, it goes both ways. I'm agnostic on that, okay? No, I am, because it does go both ways. Sometimes sounds different, but. So the connection thing with my son in the morning, he was into blues music. Hey, Case, I downloaded some really cool John Lee Hooker stuff. I will blast that. You get up and get ready next 12 and a half minutes, we will blast that. Mom's not going to like it. We will blast that this morning. There's a connection thing. Connection sometimes breeds cooperation, breeds compliance. Here's the other one, ownership. I want to give kids ownership of their choices. Think about this. This is a really big concept, super important for you. And I'll do chores with it too. So, when you and I were kids, I'll use you because you're closer to my age. I'm a little bit older than you. But, how old are you? Do you mind me asking? No, you're not. Are you really? I hope I look like you at 70. You look awesome at 70. I hope I look like you at 65. So when you and I were kids, in the summertime, we didn't see our parents. We were gone all day and we came home for dinner. There were no parents around. There were no adults around. We just did stuff. We did good stuff. We did bad stuff. Kids can't even be mischievous because of the stupid Ring doorbell, right? You can't play Ding Dong Ditch anymore because you're on camera, right? When we were kids, we were making dozens of decisions a day with no adults around. We determined, we got on our bikes and we went places. And we didn't say, Mom, is it okay? We just went. You and I got in fights sometimes, and then we made up. Our mommies didn't talk about it and get us together. We figured it out. Your kids, though, growing up, and it's not your fault, it's just society. Your kids, from the time they get up in the morning till the time they go to bed, an adult is telling them what to do and how to do and when to do it. We are professionalizing childhood. We take our kids to professionals for everything. You and I learned how to play sports in the backyard. We were a different age, and you were a little bit bigger than me, but I learned how to play basketball by using my butt to box you out or hitting you in the ribs, whatever it was. We made up our own games and our own rules. Now we sign kids up for soccer at age 4, as if they're going to learn anything. True? They're just going to run in a circle and kick each other, not the ball. Because that's 5-year-olds playing soccer is the group. They don't play position. Because we think, well, if we just get enough professionals to show them, then they'll get a head start on things. And we're kind of robbing them of their childhood. They don't have a chance to mess up and do stuff because someone's always there saying, no, not that way, not that way. So that's partly why kids are more defiant nowadays, I believe. We had room to be defiant because we were just out doing stuff. Our parents were barely around. True? When we came home, our moms never said, guys, what did you do today? Did you have fun? Tell me. My mom never asked us. There was a respect there that she knew, if you guys didn't have a good time today, that's your fault. Literally the world to run around in and do stuff, and you didn't get. So I want to give kids ownership, and so here's how I define it. So I create a big box for my kids, a big box to live in with very clear rules, very clear boundaries, very clear expectations. It's not permissive parenting. It's what I expect from you. But within this big box, I will give you space and space to do things differently than I would do it, as long as we accomplish the same objectives. Does that make sense? I'm not saying if you want to do your homework. Oh, homework's getting done. I don't care how you do it. Want to hang off the sofa upside down? Awesome, go for it. Teenager, you want to sit in the minivan or the SUV when we get home from school, and you want to sit in there and play your music in there like it's your own little office and I'm not there standing? Go for it. I don't care. Little kids, or younger kids, you want to put a blanket over the kitchen table? We'll make a fort. Forts are cool. Now they can do it underneath the fort. It's dark under there, so you need to get them flashlight or matches, because that's stimulating, right? And they can eat the mac and cheese and chicken nuggets that fell off the plate from the night before, but they're going to own it themselves. So my 2 daughters, remember one said something mean to the other one. Young lady, you need to apologize to your sister right now. Ownership sounds like this. Hey, honey, I know that when you're ready, you know the right thing to do. And then I walk away. And the hard part is, she's not going to apologize tonight. You're going to go to bed thinking, is our daughter a sociopath? Right? Tomorrow morning, she will get up and do something kind for her sister as an act of contrition. Appropriate response? Well done. Shows me you're growing up. But she never used the words, I'm sorry. Why? Because you want it too badly. And you're a freak about saying, I'm sorry. True? And if you're a freak about it, they'll resist, but she will do it of her own accord, but it's not going to be on your timeline. I would write that down for your slightly older kids. Your kids are not going to meet your expectations on your timeline. And I know we live in New York, Connecticut area, in the Northeast, and you got to get stuff done, you got to do this. Some of you just have daughters, and some of you have great thinkers. And great thinkers don't always move that quickly. I know it's society. Yeah, not everything does. You can't force it all the time. They'll get stuff done. By the way, here's a cool thing for your ADHD kids, type kids. Manage their manage their energy, not their time. Teach them to manage their energy, not their time. I worked in the corporate world for 20 years, and we had time management seminars every year. They don't work for people like me. I don't work on time. I work on energy. How many of you are momentum workers? You can hyper-focus. My wife can work from 8 to 5 every day at the same exact pace. It's awesome. And consistent. I don't. I can go days without doing something. And then I get inspired ideas. We do a podcast called the Calm Parenting Podcast. It's pretty good. And it's actually really good. I love my podcast. You know why? I do. I like it because I learn something from it every time. Just Google or whatever, search Calm Parenting Pod. It's on Spotify and Apple, all the podcast platforms. It's rated number 24 right now last week. So, no, I'm just kidding. I don't care. I don't care. Do what? Is that a good one? Okay, thank you. Well, there's some good ones since then, too. But I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, so the deal with the podcast is we're gone for the entire month of May traveling. So all my May podcasts I did in early April. I can do 4 in a row sometimes. I manage my energy, not my time. You do that. I think some of you with the homeschooling do that with some of your kids. Instead of, let's do one subject, of each subject, 4 of them. It's like, oh, you're rolling on math today? Let's just do a week's worth of math right now while you're in the mode. Think about, I can't do it today, but that idea of managing energy. My son does his work and did schoolwork after he worked out. Time compression. Sometimes older kids have too much time. Teenagers get home at 3 o'clock and go to bed at 10 o'clock, i.e. 1 o'clock in the morning. In reality, they've got 8 hours. It's too much time. Well, they're not getting their work, so they shouldn't get a job. Sometimes getting a job orders their day. Because now they're home at 3 and they go to the job from 5 to 8:30. And now, how many of you do time? What is it? Work expands to the time allowed. And so some of your kids, teach them how their brains work. You work on momentum. You work on that. Anyway, it's an interesting concept. What was I going to talk about right now? No, I'm talking ownership still. You are ahead of yourself, so chill your own anxiety. I promise I'll get to it. So, I do have a question for you. Now, let me finish this. So ownership within your boundaries. So, let me do this on chores that will push you. But it may look, I want to liberate parents. Parents are strong, it's hard. I know the value of chores. You do chores so you can show that you're responsible and respectful, contribute to your home. I get it. Do any of you have kids who you are still fighting to do chores after 10, 11, 12, 13, 15 years? Okay. 15. Here's what we chose to do with Casey. Casey was horrible as a kid. Childhood didn't suit him. We knew he was going to kill it as an adult. So here's what we discovered. He went down, there's an older couple where we lived, and he would go down a couple days a week and help them with their chores and doing stuff. Why? Because they weren't us. And he did it well. He reffed hockey games. He was really good. He showed up Saturday morning, 6 a.m., fantastic at it. And he did outside work for me. He loved doing stuff outside. So here's what we said inside. We're raising him to be an adult who knows how to operate in the real world, and he's doing that. He just doesn't clean his room. He doesn't clean up his dishes all the time. And so we started refocusing on the things that he did well, and that's what we focused on. I'm not saying you should do that. What I am saying is when people are like, well, if they don't learn when they're little how to clean their, it's just not true. He's extremely responsible and conscientious at the things he cares about. And pretty much everything running a home because now he owns his own home. So I'm not saying don't make them do it. I'm saying there are gray areas where you may figure with this kid, I've been trying for 14 years to fit him into this. And sometimes it's our own control. How many of you are dishwasher freaks? Then just do it yourself. Stop asking other people to do it and then complaining about it. That's your fault. Seriously. If you're going to ask other people to do it, you have to release them from doing it perfectly like you. My wife, in our home, I don't even bother. I bring over, I rinse off, I put it by it. But I noticed many years ago, I would put stuff in because I wanted to be helpful, and she would redo it. I was like, can we be grown-ups here? Like, would it just be easier if I set them near the dishwasher? And she said, yes. I was like, why didn't you tell me that 10 years ago, right? Have those talks, right? Like, so I want to give you permission. Look, be tough on the right things and know your child, right? I was tough on Casey when he went to his job for reffing hockey games. Case, first thing I want you to do, go to the guy who schedules and say, I will work any game that the other kids don't want to work. So he gave him the 6 a.m. games with the little kids who couldn't skate. Because nobody else wanted to do those. And guess what? He showed up faithfully every single Saturday morning. Why? Because he liked money. He got paid $35, $40 a game as a 12-year-old. So he caters. He lives out near Jackson Hole now. And so he does catering events on the side because I don't pay him enough. And so, apparently. And so he goes his first day to the manager and says, hey, whatever nobody else wants to do with this catering job, ask me and I'll take care of it. Now, that was also manipulative because he knows human nature that manager is never going to ask him to do the awful job because he volunteered to do the awful job. So within 2 days, he was managing the shifts because he's a take-charge kid who can handle very pretentious, snotty people in a nice way. Sorry, Jackson Hole people kind of are. And he's very confident, and he walks in, and when things go wrong, he's really good at that. He wasn't really good at doing much around our house as a kid. And so does that make sense at all? Again, every home can be different, and if I care about, look, I want you cleaning your bedroom, then go for it. Look, I run 3 chores in my home for you guys. I run 3 services: a meal service, a taxi service, a laundry service. I ask you to do 3 chores, or for the strong-willed child, 2, maybe 1, every afternoon. You do yours, I do mine. Seriously? Seriously? You're not going to take me to soccer practice if I don't do my chores? Try me. I just do what I tell you I'm going to do. Seriously? Because it means something to me. Well, what if we don't get our chores done all week? Then Saturday morning, I declare martial law. And instead of having fun, we clean baseboards and toilets. Seriously? That's how it works. So if you want to do it, just do it in a very even, matter-of-fact manner. Be very, very, very consistent, and just push through the really nasty times to get to it. All that said, sometimes with a strong-willed child, just don't. And sometimes I pivot, and you're going to rightfully say, but you're giving in. I don't know how to answer that. Sometimes I do, and sometimes it's called, is using wisdom. Well, sometimes calling surviving, yes, and not murdering your children. One quick one, reading the moment. This is very, very normal one. We've got 8, 9, 10, 7-year-old, 11, 12, whatever. Hey, if you're going to get a shower tonight, you got to get it done by 7:30. She tell him 400 times. He doesn't get a shower. 7:31. I'm going to go get a shower. I said no shower after 7:30. You're done. Not happening. And he can melt down. And he will melt down. True? But I want to take it. I know, but I told you 400 times. You've had all day to take your shower. Rational, rational. I've told you all day long. And he's going to melt down. And if you want to enforce it, enforce it. Just put up with the meltdown and know you're probably going to be arguing about this till about 9:45 p.m. True? And I'm okay with that. Because if you want to make this, no, this is important to us. All water is off, 7:30, every night, whatever it is, then do it. And some nights it's important to say, I'm willing to hold my ground because this is important, and I'll put up with the 3.5-hour meltdown. Read the moment. Know yourself. If you had a long day, don't choose tonight. You've got to be ready emotionally to say, I'm down for the long haul tonight. I'm willing to do this and be patient. Read the moment of what your child. Has it been a long week at school already? Because some nights The reading the moment says, you know what, go ahead and take the shower. And then you and your spouse come downstairs and get a glass of tea or a whole bottle of wine. No, get a glass of wine if that's your thing. And you sit and you hear the shower, and inside you're like, he knew better. But you let it go. And you enjoy the glass of wine with your spouse. Your child is taking too long of a shower. It's wasting all your hot water. It's going to cost you an extra $1.43, Dad, right? And you let it go, and you enjoy some time with your spouse, and they come out, and they actually smell nice, and you go up and you put them to bed, and then you walk away, and you're like, we just let them get away with that. And then your other spouse is, it's also 7:50, and he's in bed, and he actually smells nice. And we could finish the rest of that bottle of wine and have a nice night. I'm not saying you have to do that. I'm saying that's an option. And you're not Look, I want to release you from all this pressure of like, well, if you were a good parent, kids are hard. And I want you to take the long path and know that half the stuff you're worrying about, especially those with younger kids, remember when you were a young parent? If we don't make the right decision at age 3.5, sometimes it doesn't always work like, you guys know that. It doesn't always work like that. You make a lot of decisions that are pretty bad at 3.5. Yep, fine, have that candy. Do it. Right? Just know that's going to ruin the rest of the night, but it's like, I just had to get through that time to live and fight another day. So let me do an ownership thing for morning routine, because I love this example. So I come to my son, I'm like, Lewis, here's the deal. I have one goal for you every morning. I want you on that school bus at 7:21. I don't care what you look like. I don't care what you smell like. I don't care what's in your stomach. Be on that bus at 7:21. Again, here's my objective. I have one objective. School bus 7:21. I release him from doing it my way, because he's not going to do it my way anyway. If you're smart enough to wear the clothes to bed that you're going to wear to school the next day, brilliant. Sleep until 7:20. You can roll out of bed, grab that Pop-Tart you hid under your bed, because I know you hoard food up there. You can run out to the school bus without your shoes on. We're in New York, not Canada. You're not going to die, right? If you want to leave your shoes on the bus the previous day, save you time. If at the end of the day, if he made the bus at 7:21, the appropriate response, nice job making the bus. But I hate the way he makes the bus, because I want him up early. I'd like him to get some exercise out in the obstacle course I built in the backyard of the basement, because little kids need to push through things and under and over things. They need to work. And I want him getting up early, and I want him to eat blueberries and avocado, because it's good healthy fat and antioxidants, so his brain's ready to learn. I want all those things. I want him to look nice, because we live in a nice place in New York. And I don't want the other parents to judge me because I sent my son to school without wearing a jacket and wearing shorts when it was 22 degrees in the morning. How many of you do that? Right? Stop fighting them. They're not going to die, right? If they get cold at the bus stop, they'll steal another child's jacket. And then you can say, Lewis, that's called being resourceful, my friend. Well done. And then you lie to them, right? You're going to catch a cold if you don't wear a jacket. No, you're not. You catch a cold from germs, not cold weather. The truth is, I don't want the other parents and teachers to think I'm a bad parent sending my 4-year-old. So I want all those things. But it's not like lecturing has ever done it. And so I step back some days, and he gets ready in a really awful way. And it causes me a lot of anxiety, because it's 7:17 and he's still not out of bed. And I want him to get to school, and I'm not sure, and he's going to create all this anxiety. Right? Your kids are going to be a whirlwind from 7:19 to 7:21, and then he's out the door, and he goes without his belt like I did today. And he's got the wrong socks on, wrong shoes together. Who cares? He just wash his hair, brush his hair. Who cares if they brush their hair? Now, I know with daughters sometimes it gets all tangly, whatever. But spray him down with Febreze. I don't care. But here's the point. I guarantee you one day he will start getting ready the way you did, because you modeled it. It may not be for a couple years. It may be 3 months and Lewis comes home, Mom, Dad, every day in third period, my stomach hurts. No snotty tone. We've been trying to tell you to eat breakfast every morning for a month. Yeah, no, Lewis, there's this thing called breakfast. It's available every morning. You can even make it yourself. You want to make it yourself. Look, the food thing, we could spend an hour on, but I'm not going to. Relax with the food thing a little bit. We grew up eating Lucky Charms. We ate so much sugar as kids. Awful. Now, we ran most of it off. But no kid has ever said, Mom, I didn't realize what I was putting in my body was so unhealthy. But after you lectured me again and showed me the food pyramid, which is all wrong anyway, I'm motivated. They will come to it. They will. Casey started eating healthy in his teens. Why? Because he started being interested in girls, and he didn't want to be embarrassed on dates asking for mac and cheese at a nice restaurant. So relax with some of those things, but that's ownership. Does that make sense? Okay. I was going to ask a question. Look, I'm terrible at time management, as I said. 15 minutes are left. It's not worth taking a break. If you need a break, you should have taken it already. I'm going to keep going. I apologize if you needed it. Let's do the anxiety thing because it's really, really important. How many of your kids struggle with anxiety? Okay. If you have a handout, open up to the second page where you are already. There's a chart with 3 columns. And I'll just do this as a foundational thing that I should have done at the very beginning, but first column is about the kids with busy brains. It feels like life's out of their control. And that's why they're always controlling other people or situations, why they can't play the board games with you. It's the high sense of justice. That's not fair. All those things. Thank you for doing that. All those things, some of the OCD kind of traits that they have come from not feeling in control. In the second column, it's brain stimulation. Some of your kids don't get enough dopamine or blood flow. So their brains are physiologically understimulated, which is why they tap pencils and bounce legs. It's why they argue with you. It's why they pick on siblings to get the brain stimulation. It's why they procrastinate. If I wait till the last minute, I get an adrenaline rush. It brings blood flow to my brain and helps me actually focus. It's why some of your teenagers, by the way, some of your teenagers are going to wait until late at night to do their work. Some of it is the world quiets down at 11 o'clock at night. I do almost all my work on off days. Most of my podcasts are recorded on Sundays. What I figured out is the world's not as fast on Sundays. It's not traffic. Up here there probably is, but not as much. We got here on Friday afternoon. Yesterday afternoon came through here. We're staying in Connecticut. There's an anxious energy every day. In the morning and afternoon rush hour, picking up kids. I feel that energy. Sunday afternoon, chill time. I think better. Some of your kids, ask them that. Hey, look, they wait till the last minute because that's human nature. We all put off things that are hard. It's just human nature. Ask them, hey, do you wait because sometimes that's after we go to bed? Because sometimes we talk so much and we're on them. Weird little thing with your kids. Sometimes you ask them a question, hey, did you get that schoolwork done? And they'll get furious. Do you know what they're internalizing? You know what they hear? Your brother doesn't have a problem with homework. Did you get yours done? Because you never get it on time. And it just grates at them. It doesn't mean you can't check on them, but I'd rather do that mission and mentor, get them accountable to someone else, get them so they take ownership. How many of you have a child who's not motivated by school, who's bright enough that if Monday morning he or she determined that he wanted to do it, they could turn it on, and they could go from C's to A's if they wanted? I'd spend more time. Now, some of your kids have learning disabilities and other things, and they need some tools. But some of your kids, it's simply a matter of they're just biding their time. Some of your kids are not going to do well in high school, and they're going to get in college, and then they're going to be motivated, and they're going to be away. Bless you. And then they're going to go for it. Now, some of them are. Some are just going to barely get by in college, too, which is why I wouldn't spend a ton of money on it, right? Community college for 2 years would be awesome for many of your kids and save you a ton of money, right? But just kind of know how they do that. So that brain stimulation thing in the second column, and in the third column, and that's why they do things the hard way. And they'll take a harder consequence because they partially want the ownership and they want to do it a harder way. And then third column is about sensory issues. So first column down there is an anxiety thing. Anxiety is caused by unknowns. So I come home and I'm like, hey, Lewis, do you want to do Taekwondo this spring? And he's like, sure, Dad, sign me up. I come home a few days later, hey, Lewis, got to go, Taekwondo, let's go. And what do we get? Dad, my stomach kind of hurts tonight. It's upset. Can we just stay home? No, here's what we're going to do. If we leave right now, we'll stop at McDonald's. We'll get a Happy Meal. Everybody will be happy. Bribery doesn't work. So then we do this one. You know what? I paid $175 for that class. Your little butt's going to be there. Never works. He's not going to be like, Dad, now that I know how much it costs you. So I'm going to fight with him the whole way to the car. You're going to go, and you're going to like it. And we're going to fight. And along the way, your child may say something like, no, I'm not going. Taekwondo's stupid. You're stupid. And you think you're looking at a disrespectful little snot that makes your life difficult. And what you're really looking at is an anxious little kid. It's not an excuse, but it explains it. And if we don't get to the root of it, all we ever look at is, that's a defiant little snot. And if all you are is defiant, all I have is this. Right? You either go, or I'm going to take away everything you own. And it becomes me against you your whole childhood. I'll tell you, most of the time, your kids aren't defiant just from pure defiance. Sometimes they are because they're humans, and they don't want to do stuff that you want them to do. Sometimes it's frustration. Sometimes it's disappointment. A lot of times it's anxiety. When I said, Lewis, Taekwondo, here's what triggered in his brain, all the unknowns. Mom, Dad, have I ever been to Taekwondo place? Is it going to be loud in there? Some of your kids are really sensory. What if it smells bad? Some of your kids are freaky with their smells. Is the instructor going to be kind and patient with me? Because sometimes other adults aren't always patient with me. And what about the other kids? I don't always get along with kids my own age. What if they pick on me? And I'm not good at multiple step processes and following directions, verbal directions. So what if I'm not good at Taekwondo? Am I going to fail? And if I want to quit, is Dad going to call me a quitter? No, I'm not going. And the reason they go harsh with you're stupid, they want the punishment. You'll go to your room for the rest of the night. See my bedroom? I'm good in my room. I got food up there, right? No, it's a safe place. You're asking me to go to some new place where I could get rejected or I could fail. Not happening. Does that make sense? So let's tie everything from today together. Part of the reason I want to learn how to control myself is because I really mean this. These nasty moments are great bonding opportunities. That moment where it's usually, you know what? Your brother never gives me any problems. Sister goes to these things. Why do you have to make everything so difficult? I used to say that to Casey. That'll crush a kid, right? Why can't you just get in a car and just go? This moment now, if I can control myself, and I take 5, 10 seconds, and I'm encouraging space, space, space. You don't have to do everything immediately right now. You don't have to solve everything right now. I think I'm trying to take this kid to a 45-minute class, and he won't go, and he's fighting me, calling me names. It doesn't make sense. When things don't make sense, that usually means it's anxiety because it's irrational. Now when I step back, now instead of looking at a defiant little snot who's yelling at me, I'm looking at an anxious kid. So 2 steps here. And the first one I've just added a lot more emphasis on recently. Normalize anxiety for your kids. Of course you're anxious. I love that phrase. Of course you're anxious. You should be anxious. You're going to a new place where you don't know anybody. You don't know what to expect. You should be a little nervous. I'm normalizing it. Our society, I think part of the reason we're having so many problems with teenagers is we're not being the adults who say, oh, you're 15 and you're confused? You should be. Thank you. You feel awkward? You should, because you are awkward. You're weird. Don't say it, right? Don't say that, but we're lacking. We don't have the adults now. And look, sometimes therapists aren't allowed to say these things anymore. You're confused about? You should be confused. It's hard. Being 14 or 13, probably the hardest point of your whole. Who has ever wanted to go? I'd love to go back and be 13 again. 17, maybe. But not 13 or 14. My wife's a therapist. We believe in therapy, but we're doing way too much therapy for kids now. You get a 12-year-old girl who's feeling a little anxious. I'm talking about overwhelming anxiety or depression. Honey, why don't you go every week and talk to this person about your anxiety? You will create a very anxious person because nobody's telling them, of course you're anxious. You got social media telling you you should look like this and be like this and experience all these things, and everybody on social media is happy, and your life isn't always smiling and fun. That causes anxiety. Of course you're anxious. Lewis, I'm asking you to go to some place you've never been. It would be weird if you weren't a little anxious. Especially your introverts. If any of you are I'm an introvert. Ask me to go someplace. Nope. I'm not coming to your house for dinner. I'm sorry, my son's not feeling well. I'm not going to tell you he's 30. I'm just going to tell you he's not feeling well, right? But please normalize childhood. Of course this assignment is hard. You have to write about a subject that you're not interested in and get all these swirling thoughts from your head onto paper. It's going to be hard. Rather than, this isn't, if you would just focus. Well, if it's not hard, but it's hard for me, then I must be stupid. If I shouldn't be nervous, but I am, then there must be something wrong with me. That almost made me cry. I'm thinking of this generation of kids who they all think there's something wrong with them. And there's not. There are some that have some real issues. But most of the kids, you're just nervous. You're just anxious. You're confused, as you should be. Because it's hard. Right? And then it normalizes. Now, what I didn't say is, therefore, Lewis, let's just stay home and eat donuts. My follow-up is, but I believe you're capable of going and having a good time. That assignment is difficult to do, but I believe with the right tools, I can show you how to get thoughts from head to paper. By the way, teach your kids how to dump thoughts out of the head from head to paper without being neat. Teach them, I don't have time. I taught kids to vomit. Vomit the thoughts from your head to paper, because every little boy remembers the word vomit, right? Because you know what they do? They try to organize it in their head as they're writing it, and it's too hard to do. And then you throw on dysgraphia, right? Or dyslexia. It's really hard. So the best thing you can tell them is, I would go to a teacher for younger kids and say, my child has never done well with writing assignments. Could we start with a subject that he or she is interested in? And then I tell the child, dump all those thoughts. Make it messy on your sheet. Write sideways. Write upside down. Write in little boxes. Make arrows. Do whatever you want. Just get it here, because once it's here, it's all concrete. Older kids, first copy, first draft, I want to be horrible. Make the worst first draft you can possibly do. I just want you to get all these thoughts out of here down onto that computer screen, because once it's on your computer screen, I can cut and paste and I can move it. That's the first step, is just vomiting it out. That's a tool that we use, the vomiting tool. I've never called it that before, but it helps your kids. So first thing is normalize. Lewis, of course you'd be nervous. Now here's the tool we use to get kids to go to places they don't want. Every place your child goes, ask another adult to give your child a job to do. So I go a few days ahead of time to Taekwondo place when there's no pressure to perform, which is a really awesome thing if you can have the time to do it. Rather than rushing them in there, come on, you're going to have a good time, you're going to have a good time. Get inside, I will pick you up in 45 minutes. It's not going to work. Now they can sit and eat popcorn and just watch how it works. But I go and I meet Taekwondo guy, and I'm like, Taekwondo guy, my son's going to be in your class Thursday night, loves helping other people. Can you give him a job to do? Taekwondo guy says, Lewis, I'm psyched you're in my class. Listen, I need your help. How many of you know those are magical words for your kids? I could really use your help from another adult. I need you here 5 minutes early. When you come in, you're going to rearrange the mat, set up the cones, help me get ready for class. You up for that? Most of your kids to other adults, yes, ma'am, yes, sir. So when I come home a few days later, Lewis, we got to go, Taekwondo. What triggers in his brain is not the unknowns. Mom, Dad, remember Taekwondo guy said he needed my help. He said be there 5 minutes early, so we need to leave like 3.5 hours early so we're not late. That's the anxiety, get there early. And when he gets to that place, his brain is focused on his job to do, a mission. Focus your kids' brains on missions. Make them harder. Make them adult-type jobs. Have teachers, assistant principal, Sunday school teacher. Oh, I could use your help. Sunday morning, could you get here a few minutes early? I need your help doing X. That is a great way. It is what many of us do. If I came to your house for dinner, the first thing I would say is, Alicia, what do you need me to do? Oh, we're doing burgers tonight? I'll man the grill. And then that whole night, I don't have to stand around awkwardly. My name's Kirk. What's yours? Right? And you're like, you're on the spectrum. And I'll be like, pretty much. Right? But I can run the grill. And then when Lewis comes up, I'm like, Lewis, what kind of cheese you want on a burger? You want Swiss, provolone, you want Gouda? And then I ask you, and then I ask Pastor, and then tonight my wife's like, did you have a good time? I was like, I spoke to 3 men, and I know Lewis likes provolone, Milwaukee dude likes beer cheese, right? And the pastor likes Gouda. And she's like, is that all you talked to them about? Yep. And we had a great conversation about cheese because we're men. And we didn't go any deeper. So, but that'll get me there. So, I encourage you, I know we're running out of time. Anything we didn't get to, let me finish up with this and I'll do any questions. I know some people have to go, you've got childcare. If you have additional questions, our email is on the bottom of the handout. Feel free to email me. Tell me you met me here at this church in Hopewell Junction, New York. I will remember you. It makes it more personal. We will get back to you. If there are other questions, I'll stay afterwards. I hope all your kids have a nasty meltdown this weekend so you can practice this while it's fresh. And look, please don't disregard this one. That mission and mentor thing about getting your kids to work for other people. I know you're going to try it, and you're going to be like, well, I haven't found it. Keep trying. Keep asking. Keep looking for people. It works, but it's hard. It's not going to happen this week, but one time you're going to find somebody who looks at your child and says, oh, I can use your help. And they'll become a mentor. Just keep going with that stuff. Thank you to Alicia for doing this. Thank you to everybody. Look, if you are interested, I should have done this way long ago. My son gets on me about it. You know, they referred to those CD programs. We have all these audio CDs. Nobody has CD players, so I don't even show them anymore. But it's on your handout. You don't have to do it now, but there are 13 programs on everything, including a marriage one. There's a QR code there to order, and we do the QR code so we can change the pricing all the time. I usually joke that in New Jersey, we charge them full price because it's New Jersey. And sometimes, to be honest, I joke about that with New Yorkers too, because I walked into a store today and I heard the New York accent, which I love, and we did get flipped off twice in traffic already. So usually we do charge more. Our stuff is usually pretty expensive because I want people to take it seriously, and I want people to invest in stuff because if you invest, you work at it. But at Casey's birthday today, I texted him, I said, what are we making the QR? And he said, do it $99. Homeschool thing next week when we go is going to be $149. Why? Because homeschoolers are desperate, and they'll pay anything for help. Because I'm kidding, but we will charge more. But but it's 13 programs, 30 hours, practical, really good insight. There are programs for your husband, for your kids. $99 is less than a trip to the therapist's office. If you're interested, use the QR code. It comes on an app. It comes downloaded to your phone, your computer. You and your spouse can listen. Your judgmental parents can listen, right? Whoever, right? Teachers. But anyway, it's easy. It's a really easy to listen to programs on there. If you need help with it at all, just email Casey, our son. He'll help you with it. And if you need help financially, do that. I don't really need your money. Because I get paid fees. But I do want people to have investments. So, thank you all. Lewis, did I get to enough stuff? Like, do you feel like you can go home? No, I'm serious, and be firm and tough without yelling and do that. Okay. You guys specifically, stay in touch because you're a young couple, and I appreciate that's such a good question. But if you struggle with it, email me and just say, hey, this is Lewis from there, and I'll walk you through it because it's stuff is hard for dads and moms too. Yes. Homeschool convention in North Carolina. So, are you a homeschooler?
I was, and when we moved, I won't be again.
Okay.
But right now, they're all public school. My husband's 1 of 6, and they're all homeschooled. My mother-in-law was the head of the here in Dutchess County for like 30 years.
Okay. Anyway, I'll do some podcasts on that stuff too. So, Pastor, do you want to?
Yeah, I want to thank Kim Skorlik, Alicia Martin, Tim Fennell, and Linda Smith for organizing this. Thank you
Thank
for your
you.
work. And Kirk, thank you. This was amazing. This was excellent. So thank you very much for being here with us. We have pizza in the fellowship hall, so please help yourself. We also have gluten-free options, so just enjoy. And you can have more than one slice also.
But only one of the gluten-free, because there's probably not enough of that. Any questions as you're kind of closing up? Any things I didn't get to? Yes.